All right, and welcome in to everyone, Let's do a sound check. Hold on. All right, and welcome in to everyone, Let's do a sound check. Hold on. All right, and welcome in to... And that seems loud and clear. Seems like we are loud and clear. So let's get ready to rumble. Let's see. Hello to Amy. Welcome in, Amy. Thank you for the flowers, Amy. Welcome in. And Precasant, welcome in, Precasant. Lisa Marie Presley, welcome in. Lisa Marie Presley. All right. Rochelle D, welcome in, Rochelle. And who else we got here? All right. Hey, everyone else in the Lurker crew. We got a bunch of people in the Lurker crew. Welcome in, Lurker crowd. Good to see you. Good to see everyone. Hopefully, we're all set up. Hopefully, we can get started and get done early today. We can get through this. There's a lot to go through. Welcome in. All right. Yeah, it appears I'm feeling somewhat better, but still not completely. So, all right, we are just about ready. It's been a great, long day, and boy, I'm hardly even ready. I didn't even have time to get myself together over here. Let's see. All right. Yeah. So, episode 5. I think today we will make it through the Frank's Memorandum. Thank goodness. And I'm sure it'll be just as action-packed as the previous 4 episodes. This is a nutrient-dense document, remember? And so on that note, I think we got a lot still to get into, but it's definitely, we're a lot further along than we were last week. So yeah, here we go. All right, today is Thursday, February 8th. I'm sure you're aware that there's all kind of more paperwork to read. We got Supreme Court stuff, and there's different stuff, but we'll be getting to that later. When the news breaks, everyone always jumps on it right away. So I know that you get your fill. You don't need me to hold your hands through it. And so I prefer to keep on going, get through this project, and then we address those things. We give our commentary. So sounds good to everyone, hopefully. And we will finish up with this exciting and devastating, disappointing Frank's Memorandum. And today we'll be covering part 3. Okay, we started and got through all of the relevant information on the various parties that we've discussed. And now we're going to talk about Liggett in part 3. So it'll be very interesting. I think it will take us some time to get through it, but we'll get through it. And then we will be done with the walkthrough, and we'll do a supplemental tomorrow, most likely. And the supplemental will be covering the more recent filings by the defense, which reference back to this Frank's memorandum. So it will be interesting to bring us up to date in how this applies to this very point in time. So without further ado, we'll get into part 3. All right, part 3. Liggett concealed and falsified evidence in his affidavit for a search warrant. The concealed and falsified evidence blows Liggett's timeline apart, which explains why he concealed and falsified information. For Liggett's timeline to work and to place Richard Allen on the high bridge at 2:13, the time of the famous Down the Hill video, Liggett desperately needs Betsy Blair to describe a man on the high bridge who looks like Richard Allen. And perhaps more importantly, he needed Betsy Blair to describe a car that she observed parked at the CPS parking lot at approximately 2:15 p.m. as also looking like Richard Allen, like his black Ford Focus. Her description of the man she observed on the Monon High Bridge around 2 p.m. looked nothing like Richard Allen. Liggett concealed this information from Judge Diener. Betsy Blair's description of the vehicle she observed at the CPS parking lot looked nothing like a black Ford Focus. Liggett also concealed this information from Judge Diener. For good measure, Liggett also lied about what Sarah Carbo observed at 3:57 p.m. That also blew up his timeline. Okay, so now let's get into the points. Betsy Blair's first description of the man she saw on the bridge was memorialized in Sketch 2, illustrated on February 17, 2017, 3 days after the girls were found, but not released to the public until April 22nd, 2019, following Superintendent Doug Carter's press conference. Okay, so we're looking back with Betsy Blair's description to February 17, 2017. On February 17, 2017, Betsy Blair met with State Police sketch artist Taylor D. Bryant and provided a description of the man she observed from 50 feet away on the Monon High Bridge. The same man that Liggett claimed in his affidavit was the killer. Betsy Blair told the sketch artist that the man she observed was A, a white male, B, age 20, C, had brown, curly hair, D, medium build. Once again, a white male, age 20, with curly brown hair and a medium build. Find attached and marked as Exhibit 103, the unredacted facial identification reference sheet filed as confidential that contains the description that Betsy Blair provided to the sketch artist. Also, find attached a copy of the sketch that Taylor D. Bryant produced from Betsy Blair's description of the man she observed on the bridge, marked as Exhibit 104. The illustration is also called Sketch 2 because it was released to the public second. Okay, we also call it the old guy sketch. I'm sorry, wrong there. The young guy sketch. Okay, upon looking at the sketch, Betsy Blair told the sketch artist that the illustration was 10 out of 10 for accuracy. Betsy Blair's 10 out of 10 comment is memorialized in a report identified as incident number 170091S03. This 10 out of 10 wording can be found in the second full paragraph. Attached is the unredacted report marked as Exhibit 105. Okay, so about this sketch, she rates a 10 out of 10. The Unified Command did not release the Betsy Blair sketch to the public for over 2 years. Instead, they first released the Sarah Carbo sketch, also called Sketch 1, because it was released to the public first. The Sarah Carbo sketch was illustrated by FBI sketch artist Plants from Detroit on June 19, 2017, and released to the public on July 17, 2017. Okay? Who was the person that Sarah Carbo was describing in her sketch? According to Liggett's affidavit, at approximately 3:57 p.m., Sarah Carbo observed a man walking westbound on County Road 300 North. Sarah Carbo was headed eastbound on County Road 300 North, operating her motor vehicle while simultaneously observing this man walking on the road toward her on the opposite side of the road. This is the same man that Sarah Carbo described for the sketch artist on June 19, 2017. We will be discussing her description of that man later. Roughly 2 years later, in March 2019, Betsy Blair met with Tony Liggett, frustrated that her sketch, which was sketch number 2, or the young guy sketch, had not been released to the public. Betsy was frustrated because sketch number 1, which had been released to the public before, did not match the man that she observed on the high bridge. Betsy even commented that sketch number 1 was wrong. Okay? Betsy Blair stated that sketch number 1 with the golf hat was wrong. Certainly, it was odd that the Sarah Carbo sketch was chosen to be released over the Betsy Blair sketch for the following reasons. 1, Betsy Blair provided her description to the sketch artist only 4 days after seeing the man on the bridge, while it was fresh and on her mind, compared with Sarah Carbo, who provided her description to the sketch artist 126 days after she observed the man on the road. Betsy Blair had a good look at the man's face while stationary from only 50 feet away. Sarah Carbo was not stationary, but rather traveling down the road operating her motor vehicle, while simultaneously trying to observe the man on the road. During her March 7, 2017 interview, Betsy Blair was talking with 2 members of Unified Command, Kevin Hammond and Tony Liggett. At this interview, Betsy Blair told Liggett face-to-face that the man she observed on the high bridge fit the following description. The man was slender and youthful looking. He was more boyish looking. He was in his 20s to 30s. His hair seemed poofy, just as the sketch portrayed. He had no facial hair that she can remember. Finally, on April 22nd, 2019, Unified Command released Betsy Blair's sketch, the sketch number 2, young guy sketch, to the general public. In fact, upon its release, Superintendent Doug Carter commented that the man in Betsy Blair's sketch was responsible for the murders. Also, at the time of the release of the sketch number 2, Doug Carter also stated that sketch number 1 had now become secondary to the investigation. The fact that Sarah Carbo's sketch had become secondary to the investigation is confusing, considering Liggett's and Holman's claim that sketch number 1 and sketch number 2 are the same person. Not to mention the fact that ISP itself released 2 press releases stating that both sketches were of 2 different people and that the old guy sketch was no longer a person of interest in the Delphi murders investigation. Not only that, on the website, they post the video that we have come to know as Bridge Guy Video next to the young guy sketch. Okay, so how does that add up? If the first thing we are looking for is someone the size, shape, apparent age, and look of the old guy sketch, okay, that was drawn more than 100 days later of a man walking on 300 North who was muddy, not muddy and bloody, and who was in a tan jacket, not a blue jacket or black jacket as it appears that bridge guy is. Okay, so the sketch that we're looking at with the older guy, he's wearing a tan jacket. He does not appear to be dressed as bridge guy. Okay, but he does appear to be the age or perhaps the size of bridge guy. Whereas our younger guy's sketch definitely has a youthful appearance, a small frame, curly hair, clean shaven. So when we're looking at the bridge guy video and the young guy sketch, how do we put the face of this young guy sketch onto the apparition in the bridge guy video? It's far easier to put the sketch of the older guy walking on 300 North in a tan jacket. It's much easier to put that person who's no longer a person of interest and is not the same person as the young guy sketch. It's much easier to put that person on the bridge, which is what had been done. And is what today people still run with. Okay, but that was clarified years ago when we were told they are not the same individual and that the person represented by that sketch is no longer a person of interest. And if we were to check the websites, what we would see is that that old guy sketch is no longer posted. All that is posted is the younger guy sketch with the bridge guy video. So how do we rectify those conundrums? Continuing with the document. On March 7th, 2019, Liggett was present when Betsy Blair described the man she observed on the bridge. Betsy was actually talking to Liggett face to face when she provided the description. See Exhibit 107. Liggett heard Betsy's description of a much younger man with brown, poofy hair, okay, and clean shaven, and thin, and in his 20s, possibly 30s. But he chose to conceal this information from Judge Diener. Betsy Blair's description of a youthful, boyish-looking person in his 20s, maybe early 30s, with poofy brown hair, obviously does not at all describe Richard Allen. In order for Liggett to have provided Judge Diener with honest and accurate information, he would have had to state the following in his affidavit. Okay? I, Tony Liggett, believe that Richard Allen is the man that murdered the girls for the reasons stated herein. I also believe that the man that Betsy Blair observed on the bridge is Richard Allen, and therefore the killer. However, I also must inform the court that the man that Betsy Blair observed on the bridge really looks nothing like Richard Allen in multiple ways. Whereas Richard Allen was a man in his mid-40s with short or even shaved grayish hair. Okay. Find an attached transcript of a statement of Richard Allen's wife, Kathy, marked as Exhibit 111. When Kathy was asked what length Richard's hair would have been in 2017, she said, Richard has always had short hair. In fact, when asked for further description of how her husband has always worn his hair, Kathy said, he shaved it, explaining that he has always shaved since being in the National Guard. The man that Betsy Blair described as youthful, okay, was youthful, and the sketch artist that the man saw on the bridge, that she told the sketch artist, was 20 years old. So she's describing to the sketch artist a man who was just 20 years old. This description came only 4 days after she observed this man on the bridge. 2 years later, Betsy Blair still maintains that the man was in his 20s or maybe early 30s. Also, Betsy Blair told the sketch artist back in 2017 that the resemblance of the boyish sketch to the man that she observed on the bridge was 10 out of 10. Very odd, isn't it? 10 out of 10. I don't know if I would ever say that about a sketch. I mean, how could a sketch be 10 out of 10? Unless it's perfect. Okay. Liggett had a legal obligation to inform Judge Diener of the vast differences between Betsy Blair's description of the man she observed on the bridge and Richard Allen. He did not. The fact alone should be sufficient to merit tossing the warrant and suppressing the fruits of an illegal search. However, there's more. In order for Liggett's timeline to work, he needs Richard Allen's black Ford Focus to be parked at the CPS lot from 1:30 p.m. until 4:30 p.m. Betsy Blair sees one car at the CPS lot at 2:15 p.m. and it is not Richard Allen's car, okay? Richard Allen voluntarily was interviewed on October 13, 2022. Watching the videotaped interview, it is apparent that Richard thought he was being asked questions to help assist the police in solving the crime. Richard Allen does not realize he's being interrogated as a suspect until late in the interview. In trying to provide Liggett and Mullen a timeline of when he was at the trail, Richard stated that he arrived at the trail around noon. Okay, around noon. Later in that interview, Richard Allen told Liggett and Mullen that he probably left the trail around 1:30. In his affidavit, Liggett states that Richard Allen parked his black Ford Focus at the CPS parking lot and then cut over to the trail, where he then walked to the high bridge, ultimately following Abby and Libby across the bridge before abducting them. After murdering the girls, Liggett stated in his affidavit that Betsy Carbo observed a man that Liggett claims is Richard Allen walking along 300 North at approximately 3:57 p.m. westbound towards the CPS parking lot. The implication being that Richard Allen was walking back to his car after abducting and murdering the girls. If what Liggett wrote in his affidavit were true, then Richard Allen's black Ford Focus would have been parked in the CPS lot from 1:30 p.m. until at least 4 p.m., giving him time to abduct the girls, murder the girls, and walk back to his black Ford Focus parked at the CPS parking lot sometime after 3:57 when Sarah Carbo observed him walking down 300 North. In other words, for Liggett's timeline to work, Richard Allen's black Ford Focus would have to remain parked at the old CPS building from roughly 1:30 p.m. when Liggett claims Richard Allen arrived until roughly 4 p.m. as Liggett claims. Richard Allen had abducted and murdered the girls. If Richard's black Ford Focus was not on that CPS parking lot between those hours, 1:30 p.m. and 4 p.m., then Liggett's timeline would be blown. In his deposition, Liggett was asked a series of questions by defense counsel. Okay, and Liggett answered those questions as follows. Counsel, is it your contention that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was parked at the old CPS building at 1:29 roughly p.m. on February 13, 2017? Liggett, yes. Counsel, is it your contention that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was parked at the old CPS building at 1:45 p.m. on February 13? Liggett, yes. Counsel, is it your contention that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was parked at the old CPS building at 2 p.m. on February 13? Liggett, yes. Counsel, is it your contention that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was parked at the old CPS building at 2:14 p.m. on February 13? Liggett, yes. Counsel, is it your contention that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was parked at the old CPS building at 2:15 p.m. on February 13? Liggett, yes. Question by the counsel, is it your contention that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was parked at the old CPS building at 2:30 p.m. on February 13? Liggett, yes. Is it your contention that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was parked at the old CPS building at 2:45 p.m. on February 13? Liggett, yes. Counsel, is it your contention that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was parked at the old CPS building at 3 o'clock p.m. on February 13? Liggett, yes. Counsel, is it your contention that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was parked at the old CPS building at 3:15 p.m. on February 13? Liggett, yes. Is it your contention that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was parked at the old CPS building at 3:30 p.m. on February 13? Liggett says yes. Is it your contention that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was parked at the old CPS building at 3:45 p.m. on February 13? Liggett, yes. Counsel, is it your contention that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was parked at the old CPS building at 4 o'clock p.m. on February 13? Liggett, yes. Counsel, is it your contention that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was parked at the old CPS building at 4:30 p.m. on February 13? Liggett, no. What time do you contend that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was no longer parked at the old CPS building? Around 4. Okay. Throughout his answers, Liggett demonstrated that he recognized that for his timeline to work, Richard Allen's black Ford Focus would have to be parked at the CPS lot from 1:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. in order to give Richard Allen the time to abduct and murder the girls and return to his vehicle. Therefore, if there was any evidence that Richard's black Ford Focus was not parked in the old CPS parking lot between those times, there's something that he, Liggett, would be required to share with Judge Diener. Rather than tell the truth, Liggett concealed the evidence that Richard's black Ford Focus had left the CPS parking lot probably at 1:30, but certainly before 2:15 p.m. when Betsy Blair saw a completely different car. Therefore, Richard Allen could not have been on the bridge at 2 p.m. or committed the murder soon thereafter. For starters, as noted earlier, in his interview with Liggett and Mullen, Richard Allen stated that he arrived at the trails around noon and left at 1:30. Okay? All right. He should have, especially if there were evidence that a different vehicle was parked at the old CPS lot after 1:30 p.m. but before 4 p.m., which would support Richard Allen's statement that he left the CPS building around 1 p.m. or 1:30 p.m. So the next question to ask is, did anyone else see a vehicle parked at the old CPS building between 1:30 and 4 p.m. that did not resemble Richard Allen's car, thus supporting the timeline that Richard Allen provided to Liggett, but which Liggett concealed from Judge Diener? The answer is yes, Betsy Blair. When Betsy Blair arrived at the trail at roughly 1:46 p.m., Betsy Blair parked her vehicle in a different location that the defense calls the Mears lot. When she left the High Bridge Trail and pulled out of the Mears parking lot, Betsy Blair was headed west on 300 North in her car and was spotted on the Harvest Store camera heading towards the old CPS building at 2:14 p.m. Okay, so we have a time on Betsy Blair driving in front of the Harvest Store cameras, and that's 2:14 p.m. Okay, so everybody got it? Lock it in your minds. 2:14 p.m. Betsy Blair is passing the cameras. So this is her minute to observe who's parked at that CPS building. What's the vehicle? The old CPS lot is only a 36 from the Harvest Store camera. Betsy Blair, giving her a full minute even to drive from that Harvest Store camera to the old CPS lot would mean that Betsy Blair would pass the old CPS lot approximately at around 2:15 p.m. So 2:14, she's in front of the cameras at the Harvest Store. So between 2:14 and 2:15 p.m., she's at the lot of the CPS building. Remember that Liggett has admitted under oath that at 2:15 p.m., Richard Allen's black Ford Focus would be parked at the old CPS building, where Richard Allen was while Richard Allen was abducting and murdering the girls. However, at 2:15 p.m., when Betsy Blair passed the old CPS building, Betsy Blair did not see a black Ford Focus parked at the old CPS lot. Okay, so remember, Allen claims approximately 1:30 he left the trails. 1:30 to 2:15. 45 minutes. Okay, 45 minutes. Betsy Blair observed one car parked at the old CPS lot at 2:15, and that car resembled a 1965 Ford Comet. Okay, so you guys, I need you to do this. I really need you to do this immediately. You type in this term, 1965 Comet. You look at that vehicle, okay, and you tell me if that 1965 Comet that she observed 45 minutes after Allen claims to have left, if that at all in any way could possibly resemble Richard Allen's black Ford Focus. Okay. 1965 Comet compared to a black Ford Focus, approximately, I don't know the year of the car, but from the 2000s. Okay. You compare those two vehicles. Okay, it's a Mercury Comet. It's not a Ford. It's not a Ford. But Betsy Blair thought that it was like what she would claim would be a Ford Comet like her father once owned, a 65. So you look up Mercury Comet, 1965 Mercury Comet, and you compare it to a 2000s black Ford Focus. Okay? The shape had sharper angles, is what she's quoted as saying. She even provided a sketch of the side profile of the car that she observed at 2:15 p.m. at the CPS lot, featuring the angles that the car possessed. Blair's sketch of the side profile of the car is attached and hereto marked as Exhibit 113. The sketch definitely looks nothing like the side profile of Richard Allen's Ford Focus. A photo of a Ford Focus, similar to one owned by Richard Allen in 2017, is also attached and marked as Exhibit 114. Again, to whom did Betsy Blair provide this description of a 1965 Mercury Comet looking, angular in appearance vehicle that she sketched out? None other than Liggett. Liggett was fully aware that the car that Betsy Blair described as being backed into a spot at the old CPS building looked nothing like Richard Allen's modern black Ford Focus. She's describing a vintage, sharp-angled, long, distinct-looking vehicle. And if you were to search 1965 Mercury comet, you will see what I'm discussing, talking about. Liggett concealed that information from Diener. It should also be noted that if Richard Allen left at 1:30 p.m., then the person that Betsy Blair observed on the High Bridge at roughly 2 was not Richard Allen. Okay, so the saying that Richard Allen put himself there at the time the girls were killed or abducted, it's not accurate. He says 12, look at your screen there, all right? He says 12 to 1:30. And here, 45 minutes later, we have Betsy Blair passing and observing a 1965 Mercury Comet-looking vintage vehicle. All right. It should also be noted that if Richard Allen left at 1:30, then the person that Betsy Blair observed on the High Bridge at roughly 2 was not Richard Allen. This would explain why the person that Betsy Blair observed on the High Bridge looked nothing like Richard Allen. 20 years old, poofy, curly hair. It wasn't a 20-year-old kid with poofy brown hair. Concealing Betsy Blair's description of the vehicle at the old CPS building from Judge Diener may have temporarily plugged a hole in the dam of Liggett's problematic timeline when Diener reviewed the affidavit on October 13, 2022, but Liggett's concealment has now been exposed, okay, thanks to discovery. Remember, this comes from discovery. It even gets worse. When asked to describe the color of the car that resembles a 1965 Mercury Comet, Betsy Blair actually told Liggett that the car she saw was not black. That's right. Liggett heard from the mouth of Betsy Blair that the 1965 Mercury Comet-looking vehicle was not even black, which is the color that Liggett needed the vehicle to be in order to fit the description of Richard Allen's black Ford Focus, as described in Liggett's affidavit. Because of Betsy Blair's description of the car she viewed at the old CPS building, evidence supports that Richard Allen left at 1:30 p.m. as he told Liggett. At some point in time after Richard left the old CPS lot, an older, angular-looking car resembling a 1965 Mercury Comet that was not black arrived at the old CPS building. Then the driver of this 1965 Mercury Comet looking big, angular, non-black vehicle backed into the CPS lot. At roughly 2:15 p.m. when returning home, Betsy Blair observed this car that reminded her of a car her dad had growing up, a vintage vehicle. All of this adds up to this fact. Evidence concealed by Liggett supports that Richard Allen was not at the crime scene, as he had already left at 1:30 and was already home by the time that Betsy Blair observed the 1965 Mercury Comet-looking non-black vehicle at the CPS parking lot. Okay, allegedly. Okay, allegedly. But at a very minimum, this is the twisting of facts and witness statements to fit a narrative, to pile on to a PCA. You tell me how a vintage 1960s looking, angular, long, Mercury Comet looking vehicle, which is very distinctive, could at all ever in a million years confuse even the most novice vehicle aficionado or even the most novice person on cars at all, the most stupid person on any vehicle. Okay, you don't have to be a vintage aficionado to understand that. It's not going to take a specialist to know the difference between a modern Ford fucking Focus and a vintage 1960s Comet looking car. There's no way you're confusing them, even if you're the stupidest person when it comes to cars, vehicles. And Liggett knew it. Again, because of Blair's description of the vehicle she observed at the old CPS building, evidence supports that Richard Allen was also home by the time that Betsy Blair saw the 20-year-old with brown, poofy hair, lanky and young-looking, clean-shaven. Which again explains why the person on the bridge looks nothing like Richard Allen and why the young guy sketched looks nothing like Richard Allen, because it wasn't. This is simply outrageous and abusive behavior on the part of Liggett. Yeah, even if you can't claim that it wasn't Richard Allen, to try to turn a 1965 Mercury Comet looking vehicle into a modern Ford Focus, it's clear abuse of power. Clear abuse of power. A malignancy in law enforcement to try to do that. There's no way that woman's that confused. Abusive in that Liggett used his power as a law enforcement officer to conceal evidence to secure a search warrant 26 days before an election in which he was running for sheriff. At the brunt end of Liggett's abusive behavior is Richard Allen, who's been sitting and suffering in hell for over 10 months. Yes. And now for over a year. Liggett doesn't even have the excuse that Betsy Blair provided the description to a different detective, and then therefore he could not have known of Blair's distinguishing description, making it like a simple administrative snafu that fell through the cracks, blaming it on someone else. No, Liggett heard the description straight from the mouth of Betsy Blair, who also drew him a side profile of a vehicle resembling a comet with angular lines, yet chose to conceal this timeline-destroying evidence from Judge Diener. If Judge Diener had known that the evidence showed that Richard Allen was home by the time the girls were abducted at 2:13 p.m., Diener would have never signed the search warrant. But it gets even worse. Liggett flat out lied when he told Judge Diener in 2017 Sarah Carbo described a man wearing muddy and bloody clothing and was wearing a blue jacket. For Liggett's timeline to work, not only did he need Richard Allen's black Ford Focus to be parked at the old CPS lot, which resembles nothing like a Mercury Comet, but he also needed Sarah Carbo's statement concerning the man she claims she saw walking westbound on 300 North at 3:57 to match Blair's description of a man wearing a blue jacket. It would also help if the man had blood on his clothing to further tie him to the murder. In his affidavit, Liggett wrote the following. An interview was done of Sarah Carbo in 2017. She states that she was traveling east on 300 North and observed a male subject walking west on the north side of 300 North. Yes, this is the Mears side. Away from the Monon High Bridge. She stated that he was wearing a blue-colored jacket and blue jeans, and he was muddy and bloody. She further stated that it appeared he had gotten into a fight. Investigators deemed from the video that she was on 300 North at 15:57 hours. The blue jacket described by Sarah Carbo would need to match the color of the jacket described by Betsy Blair to help Liggett's timeline. Again, the blood on the clothing would be an added bonus, in that it would tie the man that Sarah Carbo observed in with the murders and therefore assist Judge Diener in making the decision to sign the warrant. The problem is that in 2017, Sarah Carbo told Liggett to his face that the man she observed walking west on 300 North was wearing a tan-colored coat or lighter-colored coat, not a blue jacket. Tan-colored coat, lighter colored. This is a problem because the color of this man's coat did not match the coat of the bridge of the guy Betsy Blair observed on the high bridge with poofy brown hair, 20 years old, and boyish looking. According to Liggett, both of these men were Richard Allen. Another way to put it is that Liggett has asserted that sketch 1 and sketch 2 are the exact same man, Richard Allen. Remember that Liggett has testified under oath that only one man, Richard Allen, has committed these crimes. Therefore, if Betsy Blair observed one man, while Sarah Carbo observed an entirely different second man, a different man, then this would cut against Liggett's preposterous contention that the only man, Richard Allen, is the only one man who committed this crime. The fact is that perhaps neither the young man Betsy Blair observed, nor the muddy man Sarah Carbo observed in the light tan jacket, had anything to do with the murders. Meanwhile, as Blair and Carbo were observing these two different men, Richard Allen was at home and a 1965 Comet-looking non-black vehicle was parked at the OCPS lot. Let's back this up because this has to sink in, okay? This has to sink in. Let's read this statement of Liggett again, in which he lies, flat out lies. An interview was done of Sarah Carbo in 2017, says Liggett. She states that she was traveling east on 300 North and observed a male subject walking west on the north side of 300 North, away from Monon High Bridge. Okay, true. We all agree with that. Okay, so introduction to the paragraph, factual, true. Okay, but you must be true in all things, Liggett. She stated that he was wearing a blue-colored jacket. Stop there. First lie. What did Sarah Carbo state? What did she state to Liggett to his face in 2017? A tan-colored coat, a lighter-colored coat. A tan-colored, lighter-colored coat. Sarah Carbo told Liggett, I saw a man in a tan-colored coat, a lighter-colored coat. Liggett told Diener, she stated he was wearing a blue-colored jacket. Okay, first lie. She said to him, tan-colored coat, lighter-colored coat. He says to Judge Diener, a blue-colored jacket. Again, she says she described someone who was muddy. Let's continue reading. And blue jeans, and was muddy and bloody. Here's the problem. Sarah Carbo did not say bloody. She said muddy. So, to Judge Diener, he flat out lies and says, she said he was wearing a blue-colored jacket when she actually said tan-colored. And was muddy and bloody. Key term there, bloody covered in blood. She said muddy. Okay. But obviously, Liggett needed that jacket to match the Bridge Guy video and the Betsy Blair description of a man in a bluish or darkish coat. Even though he knew the ages were totally different. The descriptions, the facial hair, the build, the age, he knew the descriptions were totally different. Okay. I don't know if I've got myself lost now, but here we go. Nowhere in Sarah Carbo's 2017 interview does Sarah Carbo use the word bloody. Okay, repeat that. Nowhere in her 2017 interview does she use the word bloody to describe the clothing that the man was wearing. The so-called muddy bloody lady is actually just the muddy lady, as Carbo only used the word muddy to describe the man she observed walking on 300 North in her 2017 interview. It certainly would help Judge Diener in making his decision if the man walking down the street was wearing a blue jacket and was also wearing bloody clothing, as if he had just murdered someone. However, Liggett just flat out lied. Sarah Carbo never mentioned a blue coat, and she never mentioned blood in her 2017 interview. Instead of lying, had Liggett told Judge Diener that the man walking down 300 North at 3:57 p.m. was wearing a light-colored tan coat instead of a blue jacket, then Diener would have realized that Betsy Blair and Sarah Carbo did not see the same man. Instead of lying, had Liggett told Judge Diener that the man walking down 300 North only had on muddy clothing, the Judge Diener would have not associated that man with the murder. Again, Liggett can't claim that when drafting the affidavit, he relied on false description provided by a different investigator. No. Sarah Carbo told Liggett to his face that the man she observed was wearing a tan coat and was only muddy and not bloody. If Judge Diener had been told the truth, he would have not or should have not signed the search warrant. So think about the abuse of power here. Think about if there was a fight at your child's school. Okay? Let's make it innocent. Okay? Let's make it innocent. So I'm going to describe the situation for you. The situation is your child is in 3rd grade. You get a phone call from your child's school, and the school says to you, Mrs. Smith, sorry to inform you, but little Johnny has been in a fight with a classmate today during school. Okay? We'd like you to come in and speak with us and then pick up little Johnny. Okay, so what happens? Mommy drives on over to the school to meet with possibly the teacher and the principal, assistant principal, and the student, her child, and maybe even the other student, okay, maybe the other parents. So there's going to be an important meeting at your child's school about a little altercation between 2 3rd graders in the midst of the school day. And so now the parents and the administrators are there to discuss what transpired around surrounding this fight, okay, of your child. Imagine that the principal sits you down and the principal lies about what transpired to lead to this fight and about the details of the fight and the aftermath. Okay, so you're sitting there, you're listening to the principal describe the incident surrounding this fight, and you're trusting that this principal, who is responsible for running the school full of young school-age children, is going to sit there and tell you the truth. You're sitting and you're understanding that we are all adults in this room and that we are dealing with children. And the expectation is that principal is going to tell you the matter of facts of what happened. Okay, that's the expectation. But what if that principal were to misrepresent, exaggerate, and lie about what your child did while you sit there in that school, concerned about your child and the other child? What if that principal lied to you about your own child's actions and the other child and what had transpired, and something as innocent as a little elementary school squabble on the playground between two third graders? It would be unacceptable, wouldn't it? Something as innocent as that, a little elementary school fight between two third graders? That would be completely unacceptable for the authorities in this instance to sit you down and lie about the actions of both your child and the other child, sitting in a position of authority and respect and trustworthiness. So what if we're not talking about elementary school, but we're talking about death penalty or life imprisonment or the murders of two little girls? Liggett misrepresented the vehicle, the timeline, the clothing, and the blood. Conclusion of part 3. There's a reason that in his sworn affidavit, Liggett concealed key information from Judge Diener and lied about other key information. Had Diener known the hidden and falsified facts, then Diener would have never signed the search warrant. A search warrant that was already insufficient in linking Richard Allen to the murders even before Liggett's lies and deceptions. Liggett's concealed and falsified evidence would have told a completely different story had Liggett not concealed evidence and lied about the evidence. Richard Allen told Liggett to his face that he had left the old CPS parking lot by 1:30 p.m. But Liggett opted not to let Judge Diener know about what Richard said. When Richard Allen drove away from the old CPS parking lot at approximately 1:30 p.m. to go home, at some point in time before 2:15, a person driving a car that resembled a 1965 vintage Mercury Comet, angular in shape and not black, backed their car into the old CPS parking lot and parked. Then at 2:15 p.m., 45 minutes after Richard alleges he had left, Betsy Blair drives past and observes the car and remembers, probably sentimentally, what it looked like because it reminded her of her youth. a car that her dad drove in the 1960s, not a modern Ford Focus. Because Richard Allen had left the CPS parking lot at or before 1:30, according to him, it certainly explains why the man that Betsy Blair observed at the High Bridge at 2 p.m. was boyish. Remember, slender, youthful looking, 20 years old to 30s, poofy brown hair, curly, that looked nothing like Richard Allen. Because it wasn't Richard Allen. As Richard Allen had left for home, allegedly, a half hour earlier. There is a reason that the man Sarah Carbo observed on 300 North at 3:57 was not wearing a blue coat like the man Betsy Blair observed on the High Bridge, who was young looking. This is because the man that Sarah Carbo observed on 300 North at 3:57 wasn't the same man that Betsy Blair saw on the bridge at 2 p.m. And not only that, law enforcement told us that. Years later, law enforcement said, these two men are not the same person. The older man is no longer a person of interest. Remember, the older man is supposed to be the man in a light tan colored jacket who was muddy and walking on the north side of 300 North. The other sketch of the younger guy is who Betsy Blair observed on the bridge, who was wearing a blue jacket, looked like to be in his 20s, slender, with curly hair. Law enforcement told us they are not the same man, and that the man walking on 300 North in the old guy sketch was no longer a person of interest, but the young guy is now the person responsible for the murders of the girls. The person responsible for those murders is still on the FBI website, looks nothing like the old guy sketch, but is posted up right next to the bridge guy video. So how do you rectify that bridge guy video with the young guy sketch? And what about the previous statements from ISP that those two individuals in the sketches are not the same person and the older guy is no longer a person of interest? Make it make sense. It was a completely different man that had mud on his clothing, not blood. Liggett invented blood. Liggett invented a blue jacket. Betsy Blair saw one man, and perhaps the same man that Rayleigh Voorhees, Bree Wilbur, and Anna Spath saw on the trail. Sarah Carbo observed a completely different man. And while all these witnesses were observing two different men, at least, possibly three, Richard Allen allegedly was at home having left at 1:30, admitting to being there from noon to 1:30, not from 1:30 to 4. That difference, that difference is the concealed and falsified evidence that had Liggett not twisted, would have made for Judge Diener to make a better decision on whether or not Richard Allen was possibly tied to these murders. Again, had Liggett not inserted bloody, blue jacket, and black Ford Focus, okay, into the these words into the mouths of the witnesses, Judge Diener would not have signed the search warrant, period. We've told you from the beginning that these witnesses complete garbage. It will never work. It will never make it in court. At least not to not in the way that is being attempted by prosecution. Okay, it may work in court to dismantle the prosecution. It's the only way these witnesses are going to work in court, to show their the outright lies, misrepresentations. Okay. All right. Part 4. Let's move on to part 4. Odinites in Westville. After his arrest, Allen was forced to be housed in Westville Correctional Facility based upon a safekeeping order, allegedly chosen by the DOC. On April 3rd, 2023, 2 of the transport guards walking Richard to and from his visit prominently displayed multiple patches on their DOC uniforms. At that time, the defense was fully aware of the Odinite involvement in the murders. The law enforcement would likely not have known that the defense was aware of this. Okay, this is probably why they felt comfortable openly displaying their Odinite patches. No one was on to them. The top patch, "In Odin We Trust," was displayed under the embroidered name tags on the right side of the Department of Corrections uniform shirt. Okay, so think about it. Name, "In Odin We Trust." On the left side of their DOC uniform shirts were 2 patches. The lower of the 2 patches consisted of a partial American flag and interlocking triangles. So, Odinite. The interlocking triangles is a common symbol for those involved in the pagan Odinite religion. Above this American flag interlocking triangle patch was a patch that proclaimed, "I hate people." How is this appropriate? How is this appropriate? Below are the images of those patches. In spite of the fact that for over 5 months, from November 2022 to April 2023, Richard Allen's defense team had been able to bring in their phones when visiting Richard Allen. After the defense team showed photographs of a decrepit Richard Allen at Westville, you remember that photo. The warden apparently issued an order that the defense team were no longer allowed to bring in their phones. Because Richard's defense team were no longer allowed to bring in their phones, the defense team was not able to take photographs or video of these patches in April 2023. Therefore, the defense is providing affidavits from members of Richard Allen's defense team that viewed these patches on multiple occasions on April 3rd, 2023. Here are the patches. Okay, wake up call to viewers who are new to this. Look at your screen. What you are seeing are the patches worn by the guards. Okay, the guards who are supposed to be representative of law enforcement in caretaking of the prisoners at Westville. These are the literal patches they are wearing alongside their name tags on their DOC issued uniforms. The images below of the patches worn by Sergeant Robinson and Jones were found on Etsy. These patches can be purchased off of Etsy. Remember, we are talking about those tasked with the protection and security of prisoners of Westville Correctional Facility. How is this appropriate for a prison guard, an employee of the state of Indiana, of the Department of Corrections or sheriffs? I believe they are DOC. How is this appropriate for representatives of the state of Indiana to be wearing this on their state-issued uniforms under the name tags and on both sides of the shirt? The first time that Richard's defense team noticed Sergeant Jones and Robinson and the patches shown above that they wore in their DOC uniform was April 3rd, 2023. This also coincides with the time frame that Richard Allen's mental health begins a steep decline. Okay, look at it. Richard Allen's mental health. Richard Allen's mental health deterioration. Remember, Richard Allen asking only to his attorneys repeatedly, is my wife alive? Is my wife okay? Is my family alive? Is my family okay? Is my daughter alive? Is my daughter okay? Is my family alive? Is my family okay? Is my wife alive? Is my wife alive? Is my wife okay? From April 2023 forward, these two guards, Robinson and Jones, seem inseparable from Richard Allen. According to the Max Baker affidavit, these two guards, is my wife alive? Is my wife okay? Is my family alive? Is my family okay? These two guards wearing these patches seemed inseparable from Allen. Overnight corrections officers Robinsons and Jones would walk Allen to and from his attorney visits wearing these patches, as well as on one occasion when Richard Allen visited his wife. They always wore these embroidered patches. Is my wife alive? Is my wife okay? Is my daughter alive? Is my daughter okay? Is my family alive? Is my family okay? For a period, Sergeant Robinson and Jones were also videotaping Richard Allen and his interactions with his attorneys, and they forced him to face the camera. This ended only on complaint by Richard Allen's attorneys after several visits. Additionally, Sergeants Robinson and Jones were always close enough to Richard to be assured that Richard did not feel comfortable talking to his attorneys or his wife without knowing that these overnight guards, is my wife alive? Is my wife okay? Were within earshot of hearing anything he would tell his lawyers or his wife. Max Baker and Matt Hoffman have both been a part of Richard Allen's defense team since December 2022 and have met with Richard on several occasions. Paragraph 10 of Max Baker's affidavit, Exhibit 115, provides insight into some of what was going on at Westville with the Odinist guards, Jones and Robinson. And I'll quote, during one memorable visit on May 4th, 2023, myself, Attorney Baldwin, and Attorney Rossi met with Richard Allen to discuss matters involving this case. At this time, Richard Allen was in a mental and physical state of deterioration and was nearly non-communicative. During the visit, Richard Allen repeatedly asked whether or not his wife was okay and if his family was okay. He claimed on a couple of occasions that they were going to kill him. When asked who he was referring to as they, Richard Allen responded by saying, "The guys with the Odin patches." Okay? And who were the guys with the Odin patches? Sergeants Robinson and Jones. Again, when asked who he was referring to as they, quoting, "they were going to kill him," he responded by saying, "the guys with the Odin patches." Up to this point in the legal process, Allen's defense team had never mentioned Odinites or Odinism to Richard Allen, either directly or indirectly. The first time I'm aware of any mention of Odinite involvement to Richard Allen was during a visit on August 25, 2023, when Kathy Allen attended, and a discussion occurred between attorney and client regarding ties to the crime scene. So August 2023, Allen becomes aware of his attorneys being aware of Odinites. On August 10, 2023, at a deposition, the defense finally revealed to Jerry Holman, one of the main investigators on the case, that the defense knew that evidence exposed the high likelihood that Odinites committed these murders by laying out the evidence right in front of Holman. Okay, so we're talking about Smelly Holman. Up until that time, the defense had strategically played dumb about possessing any knowledge of the Odinite involvement. This strategy was in place for many reasons. However, the defense finally revealed its knowledge to Holman on August 10, 2023. 1 week later, during their first attorney visit since that August 10 deposition, Sergeant Robinson, as usual, dropped off Rick at the attorney meeting. Sergeant Jones was absent on this visit. However, something else was different on this visit. Notably missing from the uniform of Robinson were the Odin patches that the defense team had taken note of on every attorney visit ever since April. Perhaps not coincidentally, after Jerry Holman became aware of the defense team's knowledge of Odinism involvement in the murders, magically, those patches were removed from Robinson's uniform, leaving blank spots where the patches used to be displayed on the very next attorney visit. So the patches come off because it was mentioned to Holman. So the mention is made to Holman of Odinite involvement. The patches magically disappear. The defense would remind the court that also, perhaps not so coincidentally, that Liggett was the only person who refused to support the transport of Richard Allen out of Westville when other options were available. Liggett cited as his sole reason for rejecting Allen being moved from Westville, 76 miles away, to Cass County, Logansport, is that he would have difficulty transporting Richard Allen to Delphi from Logansport for hearings and trial, a distance of less than 20 miles. Certainly, state police were available to assist in transport if Carroll County could not, yet Liggett refused to agree to the transport, leaving Richard Allen in Westville guarded by Odinites. When factoring everything contained in this memorandum, Liggett's objection to moving Richard Allen to Cass County over transportation concerns is troubling, especially when the patches were moved after the deposition. It sounds like CYA, an excuse. Also filed contemporaneously with the Franks motion and memorandum is the defense's emergency request to transport Richard Allen out of Westville to Cass County. Despite Liggett's objection to the same, as the defense has legitimate concerns of Richard's safety once this motion and memorandum are filed. Yeah, no shit. Beyond Sergeant Jones and Sergeant Robinson wearing "In Odin We Trust" patches, what else links them to Odinism? Sergeant Jones and Robinson's relationship with Odinism went beyond the patches that they each proudly displayed while transporting Richard Allen to and from his many attorney visits. Sergeant Robinson. On his Facebook page, Sergeant Robinson does not hide his devotion to Odinism. On June 25, 2023, Robinson posted a photo of what the defense would call an altar featuring horns, antlers, and Thor's hammer, and a dish sitting atop some type of animal fur, with various runes decorating outer edges of the dish. All of these items were placed on what appears to be a circular wooden platter. It appears that Sergeant Jones liked Sergeant Robinson's Odin post. Again, it appears that Jones liked Robinson's Odin's altar post. Sergeant Robinson's altar to Odin is similar to the altar that that Brad Holder posted. As stated by Max Baker in his affidavit, Sergeant Robinson was involved in transporting Richard Allen to most, if not all, of his attorney's visits. Sergeant Robinson always wore his Odin patches. However, that changed following Holman's contentious August 10, 2023 deposition. In that deposition, which has been attached and provided to the court as an exhibit, about 2/3 of the way through the deposition, Holman begins getting called out by the defense for Unified Command's incompetent handling of the Odin aspect of the investigation. It was also at that point in the deposition that the defense began asking critical questions concerning the way that Unified Command handled the investigation of Brad Holder, Patrick Westfall, Johnny Messer, and Elvis Fields. Holman's deposition has been provided to the court. The contentiousness of the deposition began on page 210 and lasted throughout the rest of the deposition. You will note that nowhere in that deposition did the defense reveal to Holman that it was aware of Sergeant Robinson and Sergeant Jones wearing the "In Odin We Trust" patches. Attorney Rozzi and defense team member Max Baker visited Richard Allen on August 17, 2023, only 7 days after the contentious deposition with Holman. A week later. At this visitation, as Max Baker states in his affidavit, Robinson was no longer wearing the patch. The defense team has no direct knowledge as to whether Holman or anyone from Unified Command contacted Robinson or anyone else at Westville to alert them that the defense team was fully aware of the evidence that supported Odinist being involved in the murders. However, it was certainly a curiosity that deserves attention. Yeah. So a week after they revealed to Holman they suspect Odinist involvement, they return for an interview and the patches are gone. As Max Baker also describes in his affidavit, Sergeant Robinson was always within a few feet of Richard Allen during most of Richard Allen's meetings, during Richard Allen's meeting with his wife, Kathy. The 2 visits that Richard had with his wife were without the hustle and bustle and noise of other inmates during their visitation. While the warden may claim that Westville was doing Richard a favor by allowing him a privacy with his wife, the defense views it differently. With no other inmates in the room was completely quiet. Sergeant Robinson could hear everything that Richard told his wife. Certainly, Robinson and Jones stood close enough to Richard to intimidate Richard from talking openly and honestly to his wife about what was going on at Westville. Is my wife dead? Is my wife alive? Is she okay? Additionally, in their combined 50-plus years of practicing criminal defense, Baldwin and Rozzi have never had their purported confidential attorney visits videotaped with a handheld camcorder. Sergeants Robinson and Jones, beginning April 3rd, 2023, began videotaping Richard Allen's interactions with his attorneys. Particularly outrageous was the fact that Richard Allen was required to face the camcorder about 10 feet away through a glass. This means that Richard Allen's mouth was being videotaped. Okay, once again, video camera pointed at the subject. The subject forced to turn to the camera so that the camera can record the mouth movements. Not in 50 plus years of defending a client have the attorneys ever seen this happen. This means that Richard was not able to fully talk freely with his attorneys or wife, and possibly say things like, they are stating that if I don't tell my wife that I am guilty, then they said they're going to harm my wife. If Richard were to say anything like that, it would be on video. Remember, Richard Allen continuously asked his defense team if his wife was okay and if his family was okay and if they were alive. The defense had obtained or has obtained video from this prison. One of the videos that we obtained shows the aftermath of something that happened to Richard Allen. Find attached a still shot of Richard Allen taken from a video that Westville produced. The defense does not have the exact date, but the video indicates that the video was taken some time between May 26 and May 30. The still shot is attached to this memorandum and is filed as Exhibit 121. 121. 121. The defense is not sure exactly what happened to Richard Allen that caused him to look the way he is depicted in that still shot, whether it was self-harm or something else. But the fact that Richard Allen is being watched by Odinites and the evidence strongly supports Odinite involvement in the murders causes great concern for the defense in terms of Richard's safety. Additionally, in Matt Hoffman's affidavit, you will find that at the last hearing on June 15, 2023, Rick was constantly pleading with the guards not to shock him. Please don't shock me. 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 Please. Hoffman indicated that Rick made that comment in front of multiple guards and in front of multiple members of the defense team. Please don't shock me. Please don't shock me. Please don't shock me. Sergeant Jones's Facebook post reveals his ties to Odinism as well. Find attached an image taken from Sergeant Jones's Facebook page marked as Exhibit 122. As you can see, the interlocking triangles that appear on Sergeant Jones's patch also appear in this photo. As you can see, the interlocking triangles that appear on Sergeant Jones's patch also appear in this photo. Okay. Sergeant Jones' Facebook page, interlocking triangles. You also notice a rune in the lower hand corner of the photo. It's hard to see because it is in black. Also, remember that Sergeant Jones liked Robinson's altar to Odin that resembled Holder's altar to Odin. The defense would request the court to review Max Baker's affidavit to learn of Sergeant Jones's involvement in guarding Richard Allen. It is nearly identical to Sergeant Robinson's involvement. Okay. All right. Conclusion of part 4. They don't teach you in law school what to do when your client, who is accused of murder, of double murder, is being guarded by members of a religious cult whose members, evidence supports, were the actual murderers. Again, what do you do when your client, who is accused of a double murder, is being guarded by members of the same cult whose evidence strongly supports were actually involved in the murders? Again, the defense team is not claiming that Sergeant Jones and Robinson are involved in the murders, just that they are Odinites, members of the same religious cult that evidence strongly supports is involved in the murders of Abby and Libby. Yet that is where we are today, even today, February 8th, 2024. At some point in time, coincidences cease to become coincidences. And we know about coincidences in the Delphi murder investigation. The fact that Liggett did not want Richard Allen to be removed from Westville, purportedly over transportation issues for 20 miles away, is curious, especially for me considering his condition. The fact that Odinites are guarding Richard is very concerning, or at least very curious, considering the evidence discussed in this memorandum. And remember, after revealing to Holman they suspected Odinite involvement, the patches come off at Westville. The fact that Sergeant Robinson stopped wearing that Odin We Trust patch and the other patches within days, within a week of Holman and the Unified Command learning that the defense was fully aware of the evidence linking or suggesting that Odinists are linked to the crime scene, and that the Unified Command has avoided investigating the Odinist connections to this case is curious. And now we have the destruction of evidence connected to these Odinists. Again, the court must determine whether Liggett actually, intentionally, or recklessly, pardon me. Again, the court must determine whether Liggett acted intentionally or recklessly when he omitted or lied about the information when he drafted this affidavit for a search warrant. The defense would ask the court to consider that Liggett objecting to Richard Allen's transfer to Cass County over transportation issues is evidence of intentionality, and that Liggett wanted Allen to remain in Westville, where he's guarded by Odinist guards Robinson and Jones and any other Odinites that the defense has not learned of yet. So how many Odinite guards are working in Westville and having contact with Richard Allen? Who other than Robinson and Jones have contact with Richard Allen and are Odinites? Just give me one moment, please, and we will move on to our final portion. Part 4, Part 5. Apologize. Part 5. Richard Allen has no ties to Odinism or any religious cult and has no ties to the crime scene. Tony Liggett has testified under oath that there is no DNA linking Richard Allen to the crime scene. Liggett further has testified that he is unaware of anything that links Richard to the crime through his phone, his computers, or his electronics. Okay? Liggett has further testified that he is unaware of any evidence that links Richard Allen to any weird religious cult group. So let's review that. Liggett has testified under oath that there's no DNA evidence linking Richard to the crime scene. He's unaware of anything that links Richard to the crime itself through his phone, computers, or electronic devices. He's also unaware of any evidence that links Richard Allen to any weird cults or groups. So far, he has nothing that links Richard. What does he have? Falsified witness statements and a highly suspicious unfired round. No DNA on the round belonging to Richard Allen. Merely ejection marks, which are a very nebulous way of identifying ballistic marks. Had that round been fired and it was an empty shell casing, you could definitively tie that shell casing to Richard Allen's gun, had it been fired. But being an unspent round, all you have is ejection marks. The science on ejection marks is extremely new, questionable, nothing like the forensic science on fired rounds and spent shell casings. It's a whole different ballgame. So all you have is a magic bullet on Richard Allen. Is that what you're saying? As far as we know in the chat, what else do we have on Richard Allen that's not a falsified witness statement by Tony Liggett, and that is not a magic bullet that's going to be thrown out anyway? No DNA, no electronics, no trail, no connections. The only thing after you remove these falsified statements of Liggett is a mysterious bullet showing up days after the crime scene was processed that is unfired, therefore almost impossible to definitively identify as coming from Allen's weapon. Jerry Holman has testified to the following. There is no DNA linking Richard Allen to the crime scene. No data extracted from Richard Allen's phone connects him to the murders. No data extracted from Libby's phone connected Richard Allen to the murders. Let's say that again. No data extracted from Libby's phone connected Richard Allen to the murders. There's no evidence that Richard Allen is or was connected to any other suspects in the case. There's no evidence found on social media that connects Richard Allen to the murders. There's no evidence extracted from Richard Allen's computers that connects him to the murders. There's no fingerprint evidence that connects Richard Allen to the murders. This section is very short because there's simply no evidence linking Richard Allen to the murders. However, in his affidavit for a search warrant, Liggett attempted to drum up as much connectivity as he could muster between Richard Allen and the murders to convince Judge Diener that it was more likely than not that the evidence of the murders would be found in Richard Allen's house and vehicles. Here is essentially what Liggett swore and affirmed linked Richard to the crime. Okay, here are our claims. 1, Richard Allen was on the trail sometimes between 1:30 and 3:30. Okay. Let me remind you that Richard Allen claimed to be on the trails between noon and 1:30, not 1:30 and 3:30. Okay. Richard owns a blue coat. Okay, and so do how many people? I own a tan coat. So could I be the person in the old guy sketch who was walking on 300 and was muddy but not bloody and not in a blue coat but a tan coat? Richard owns guns. Many people own guns. Richard owns knives. Everyone owns knives. Liggett's claim, while he was holding key evidence that a black Ford Focus was parked at the CPS building between 1:30 and 4:30, and 4, is not true. Because our witness said a vehicle that was not black, resembling a 1965 vintage Mercury Comet. Liggett's claim, while withholding key evidence, that Betsy Blair observed a man on the bridge that Liggett claimed was Richard Allen. But what she claimed she saw was a young, 20-year-old, slender, curly head guy. Liggett's claim, while withholding key evidence, that Sarah Carbo observed a man walking down the road that he claims was Richard Allen. Remember the old guy sketch? And the same man that Betsy Blair viewed on the high bridge, a 20-year-old young guy sketch. So it brings us back to this concept of young guy sketch, old guy sketch, two completely different sketches that look nothing like another. Remember Doug Carter's statement, change of direction. Remember ISP in 2 separate press releases after the 2019 press conference, clarifying that both sketches are different individuals. Both sketches represent 2 separate individuals. The initial sketch of the older guy is no longer a person of interest in this case. The young guy sketch is the new person of interest in this case. Remember, they said that these 2 people were not the same people. One is no longer a suspect. Remember, Doug Carter saying the young guy sketch is the person responsible for the murders. Remember, they are wearing 2 separate colored jackets. The young guy in a dark or blue jacket. The old guy walking on 300 in a tan jacket. Not bloody, but muddy. How many conflicting points are we seeing here? That's it. That's all. With all of the evidence linking Holder, Westfall, Elvis Fields, Johnny Messer, and Rod Abrams to the murders, as discussed in part 2. Oh yeah, remember that? Remember Elvis Fields saying that he was on the bridge with Abby and Libby, and Abigail was a loudmouth, a wild one, or whatever. And he was there when the girls were killed, and he spat on one of them. Oh, yeah. It took both of his sisters to pursue law enforcement and give the incriminating claims made by their brother, Elvis Fields. We forgot about that. Okay. We forgot about them all lying, all of this group. Brad Holder, Patrick Westphal, Elvis Fields, Johnny Messer, Rod Abrams, and Nate Smith, all lying. Liggett did not seek a single search warrant for any of those high-level suspects. However, 26 days before the election, Liggett made a choice to seek a search warrant for Richard Allen's house based upon items 1 to 7 above. Okay. Let's run this. Oh, let's make sure I'm not messing up. Let's run this list one by one. Richard Allen was on the trails between 1:30 and 3:30. Point number 1. The single solitary source for this information is Dan Doolin from the Department of Natural Resources. By the way, the DNR was also involved in the quote-unquote search. Therefore, in order to confidently trust that Richard Allen actually said that he was on the trail between 1:30 and 3:30, as stated in Liggett's affidavit, Dan Doolin's work product would also have to be trusted. Words matter when talking to someone. For example, if the exchange between Dan Doolin and Richard Allen was this: Richard, we think the girls were abducted between 1:30 and 3:30. Were you on the trail at any point in time between 1:30 and 3:30 on February? It should have been 13th. Richard answered yes. That does not mean that Richard Allen was actually on the trail the entire time between 1:30 and 3:30. However, Doolin could memorialize that exchange as Richard claiming that he was on the trail the entire 2-hour time span. If so, Doolin's report would be inaccurate. Therefore, Doolin's accuracy in writing reports may need to be considered and scrutinized. The defense does not have to go very far in scrutinizing Doolin's accuracy in report writing. It can start with the report Doolin wrote about his interaction with Richard Allen. The conversation between Richard Allen and Dan Doolin came about when Richard Allen called the tip line to provide the limited information that he may have had from his time on the trail that day. Doolin and Richard met at a grocery store in Delphi. At the conclusion of Doolin's interview with Richard Allen, he prepared his report. However, Doolin screwed up the most basic of tasks, getting the name right. Doolin was so sloppy in drafting this report that he put Richard Allen's name into the system as Rick Allen Whiteman. When Liggett was asked if Doolin made any mistakes in the report that he drafted following his interview, Liggett replied, I'm not aware of, no. But fellow Unified Command member Jerry Holman had a different answer. There was an error. I don't know if it was processing or whatever you want to call it, but at some point it got lost in the shuffle and entered incorrectly. Remember that one? Remember the damn Holman excuse? Got lost in the shuffle, entered incorrectly. Rick Allen Whiteman. Isn't that odd? Rick Allen Whiteman. Before being forced to sell their house and move away from the community that they loved because of the horrific allegations that Rick brutally murdered 2 young girls, Rick Allen and his wife Kathy lived for many years on Whiteman Drive. This is probably the source of Doolin's mistake. Find Exhibit 123, Doolin's unclassified FOUO report affiliated with DIN C000-074, which shows DNR officer Dan Doolin identifying Richard Allen as Rick Allen Whiteman in the system. Well, since we can't necessarily trust DNR Dan's accuracy in writing reports, at least there would be a tape recording that would be able to provide precise words used by Rick Allen, right? Wrong. Find attached Exhibit 124, which is a report provided to the defense and discovery from DNR Dan Doolin concerning his interview of Richard Allen. In this report, Dan Doolin wrote the following: I checked my audio recordings and cannot find one for him. I will keep looking because I am sure I recorded every interaction I had related to my assigned leads. Okay. Is this another piece of missing evidence? Of course, another source of information of what time Richard Allen was on the trails that day is Richard Allen himself. As discussed previously in this memorandum, Richard Allen told Liggett that he arrived on the trails around noon and left at 1:30 p.m. This was information that Liggett concealed from Judge Diener. Richard's black Ford Focus was not parked at the CPS building at 2:15, according to Betsy Blair. She thought she saw a 1965 Mercury Comet looking or like vehicle. This was also information that Liggett concealed and twisted. Liggett also failed to inform Judge Diener that the DNR officer, Dan Doolin, cannot be trusted to perform the most basic of tasks when conducting an investigation, that is, get the name right. Liggett swearing under oath that Richard Allen was on the trails between 1:30 and 3:30 is based upon Dan Doolin's lost and unrecorded interview, and it may not be the best benchmark for Judge Diener to rely on. Yes, we're taking his word for it. Judge Diener would not know the unreliability of Doolin's report because Liggett never let him know. Okay, so point one was revolving around when we place Richard Allen on the trails in Delphi. He claims noon to 1:30. Liggett and Doolin claim 1:30 to 3, or is it 1:30 to 3:30? So, when is he on the trails? Point number two. Richard Allen owns a blue coat, as do millions of other men. Point three, Richard owns gun, as do millions of other men. 4, Richard owns knives, as do millions of other men. His black Ford Focus was parked at the CPS building between 1:30 and 4 p.m. As the court knows by now, at 2:15 p.m., Betsy Blair observed a single vehicle parked at the old CPS lot, and it resembled a 1965 non-black Mercury Comet in her opinion, with an angular design which she sketched. This was not Richard Allen's vehicle, a Ford Focus, and it looks nothing like a modern Ford Focus. More importantly, Liggett concealed this fact from Judge Diener. Point 6, Betsy Blair observed a man on a bridge that Liggett claimed was Richard Allen. Okay, another one. As the court knows by now, the man that Betsy Blair observed on the bridge was a 20-year-old kid with brown poofy hair that did not resemble Richard Allen, possibly 30. This was not surprising considering that Richard Allen left the trail, according to him, at 1:30. Therefore, was not on the high bridge when Betsy Blair observed a 20-year-old kid. In other words, young guy sketch, on the high bridge. Rick's black Ford Focus was not in the CPS lot at 2:15. At least Betsy Blair saw a 1965 type looking in appearance vehicle resembling a long angular Mercury Comet, a vintage vehicle that was not black, not a black Ford Focus. Again, Liggett concealed that Betsy Blair identified a young man on the bridge, young guy sketch, and not Rick Allen. Sarah Carbo, point 7, observed a man walking down the road that Liggett claims was Richard Allen and also was the same man that Betsy Blair viewed on the high bridge. As the court knows by now, Sarah Carbo observed a man wearing a tan coat and muddy pants. Okay, not a blue coat and muddy and bloody. This is the old guy sketch. This man does not meet the description of the man that Betsy Blair observed on the bridge, which according to Liggett is the same man that Carborough observed on 300 North. And because Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was not at the CPS lot at 2:15 when Betsy Blair passed and saw a 1965 Comet-looking car at the CPS lot, Richard Allen could not have been the man walking down 300 North. At least, the timeline doesn't fit. But we don't know, because we are solely relying on Dan Doolin's sloppily written work. Liggett lied to Judge Diener when he claimed that in 2017, Sarah Carbo observed a man with a blue coat and muddy and bloody clothing. Richard is not connected to these horrific murders, according to the defense. Liggett attempted to convince Judge Diener that the evidence of the murders would be found in Rick's home over 5 years after the girls were slain, based upon the 7 enumerated reasons identified above. If Liggett had been honest, then Judge Diener would not have signed the warrant, and I'm confident of that as well. I agree on this point with the defense here. Liggett wasn't honest, clearly. We've gone over time and time again about the misrepresentations, particularly concerning are the witness misrepresentations. Richard's lack of any connection to the crime, seen through DNA, electronic devices, anything else other than the single magic bullet with a shoddy forensic science that is not grandfathered in and is not as identifiable as are the marks that would be on a spent shell casing from the firing pin. All of these concealments, lies, misrepresentations should have merited a Frank's hearing. I mean, at least worth hearing. Okay, remember, all of this aforementioned evidence here and these circumstances are not deemed worthy of at least, at minimum, a hearing. It's clown world we're living in. Sorry about my phone, guys. Did I forget to keep up with you guys with slides? I apologize. Here they are if you want to screenshot them, or you can download them. I apologize for not keeping up. Got lost here. All right. Conclusion of the memorandum. Here we go. Home stretch, ladies and gentlemen. Home stretch. Can I get a round of applause in the chat, please? Can you hit the like, hit the thumbs up, hit the like, give me a round of applause. Yes, Mr. Prof read through all 136 pages, okay? Let's go. Let's go. Let's get this done. Conclusion of the memorandum. To prevail on its request for the court to set this matter for a Frank's hearing at a minimum, the defense must make a substantial preliminary showing that omitted or false statements were made knowingly or intentionally or with reckless disregard. I mean, I think that that they did make a preliminary showing here. How about you? I mean, we've listened now for 12 hours maybe? Again, showing that omitted or false statements were made, check. Knowingly or intentionally or with reckless disregard, check. I think the case has been made. If the trial court concludes that omitted facts or false statements were necessary for finding of probable cause, the trial court should set a hearing on the defendant's request. Okay, and then we cite case here, Franks versus Delaware. Okay, Indiana's Girth court actually provided a simple way to assess whether a Franks hearing is justified. And that is the concealed and false information contained in the brief the type of information that any reasonable person would have known was the kind of thing the judge would wish to know? Again, is the concealed and false information contained in this brief what we have just read, with several instances of concealment, falsification, twisting, misrepresentation? Is that the type of information, is this the type of information that any reasonable person would have known or should have known was the kind of things the judge would want to know? And that's Girth versus State and State versus Vance. The defense has provided a very long and detailed analysis of the facts because the court must determine whether evidence exists that Liggett acted intentionally or that Liggett acted with reckless disregard. Either way. Either way. The defense believes that the very long and detailed analysis of these facts was necessary to provide a strong foundation from which the court can conclude that Liggett acted intentionally and or with reckless disregard. Or more simply put, the very detailed analysis of the facts allows the court to conclude, yes, the omitted information and false, outright false lies, misrepresented, omitted, twisted witness statements, and facts identified in this memorandum are the type of information that Judge Diener would have wanted to know before signing that warrant. Okay? And I think any of you being reasonable persons would most likely agree that with all of this that we've gone through, the judge should at least have had the want or desire to know about it. Any judge would want to have knowledge of this information to protect themselves and the innocent. So why was this hearing not granted? Wherefore Richard Allen, by and through his attorneys Baldwin and Rozzi, requests the court set a case for a Franks hearing, at which time the defense will be asking for the search warrant to be deemed illegal and the fruits of the illegal warrant to be suppressed. Okay, the end. And there you have it, the Franks Memorandum, ladies and gentlemen. Quite a hefty document and concerning document. And I think that this document deserves much more attention over the next year. I think every point in this document should be discussed, scrutinized, debated, and become a part of the mainstream public conversation on the Delphi murders investigation and the case against Richard Allen. They are pertinent points. The action here of law enforcement is extremely concerning. I'll bring you back to my analogy of a principal and parents in an elementary school dealing with third graders. If something so innocent should require so much integrity and be so important, then why would not something of this nature involving the murders of two young girls, the potential life imprisonment or death penalty of an accused man, the lack of any clear incriminating evidence such as DNA, electronic forensics, even so much as witness testimony. What do you have here? What do you have here with this case? And now we have new discovery dropped onto the defense, which includes the realization that there has been crucial exonerating evidence destroyed. Who knows what else is in this pile of discovery? We will be soon learning. It'll be interesting to see what else is in this pile of discovery. Remember, the defense claimed early on in this document that this was a needle in a haystack of discovery. Okay, so what other needles in the haystack of discovery are going to be found in the new batch? And why are we receiving a new batch when the trial should have been underway already? And new charges when the trial should have been underway already? What other evidence can they have for these new charges? Well, ladies and gentlemen, how on earth could I explain the actions of Carroll County, the actions of Tony Liggett, the Unified Command, Jerry Holman? We covered in detail in our review of this document the links to Miss Stephanie Thompson, to the investigation of Elvis Fields and his sisters, the highly concerning deaths of Stephanie Thompson and her daughter, and coincidentally or not, of retired agent, or I'm sorry, deceased agent Greg Ferenczi, assassinated in front of his office when lured out by a Molotov cocktail thrown at the building and shot in cold blood like a dog. Someone tell me what's going on in Delphi. Remember, in this conversation, we have not covered at all the suspicious behavior of family members, the suspicious behavior of social media personalities, meaning Facebookers, YouTubers, witnesses, suspects, related parties. We've not covered any of that. Just this document alone establishes an extreme weight of concern about what's going on with this case. And should you add to that the conflicting statements of family members, the bizarre behaviors of family members, the suspicious deaths of those involved in this case from the early days, the linkages of many of these individuals to alleged illegal activities, such as methamphetamine manufacturing and dealing, money laundering, allegedly, corruption, the Odinist linkages, the tie of these groups to the prison system and how it is a common thing in that area for the white men in prison systems to belong to these sorts of groups because they are white men, therefore they align with the white racist uh, groups to survive their prison stints. We have indications of some of the social media personalities violating or potentially subverting the gag order in place around this case, who just so happen to be state friendly, prosecution sympathetic, and due process uh, haters. We have the all out attack on social media of those who are advocating for some sort of semblance of normality and reasonability in the due process of Richard Allen because of our concern, not for Richard Allen, but for the victims of the Delphi murders and for justice for the victims of the Delphi murders. So we look at Richard Allen not with sympathy for him, but out of desire for justice for the girls and thinking that due process is justice for the girls. Justice is the only justice for the girls, not injustice. And just alone in this Frank's memorandum, you have the indications of injustice. Not to mention all the other things that have surrounded this case for all of these years, including and most concernedly the questionable YouTubers and family members. This is why I thought this document was worth a deep dive, a thorough review, a repeating, and a calling attention to the anomalies, claims, and facts stated herein. And we will not stop discussing it. So now that we've made a way for everyone to be aware of the things that are implied in this document, it's not a finishing or ending place here. It's a starting place. We are all now informed, and anyone wishes to go back over these episodes and take it all in and understand what this document is saying. This is a starting place for us to carry forward, at least knowing some of the things that did transpire. For instance, the relating of false information by Tony Liggett, which is a crime and is not just. That there was no Muddy Buddy, that there was no Richard Allen's car witnessed, but a Mercury comet from the 60s or something akin to that. There was no blue jacket on the old guy sketch. That guy was wearing a tan jacket. There is no both sketches are Richard Allen. How does this make sense? Doug Carter, please explain to us how you went on a news broadcast and you stated that you take both sketches and they are both Richard Allen. When ISP itself released two very clear press releases in 2019 stating that both sketches are two different individuals and that the individual represented in the old guy sketch is no longer a person of interest in the Delphi murders investigation. And the young guy sketch, the person that was a 10 out of 10 on Betsy Blair's radar, that young guy sketch, is the person responsible for the murders. How do you rectify that that is all Richard Allen? And if that's a 10 out of 10 and you put it next to Richard Allen, you tell me how Richard Allen is a 10 out of 10 with that sketch. He's much more a 10 out of 10 with the old guy sketch. So something smells in Pleasantville here. The facade is crumbling. And I have said often this past month that the dam has broken. The dam has broken. And you may have noticed on the thumbnails for this series, I put the term, it's game over. Because with this document comes game over. So everything that these questionable social media personalities have put forward utilizing that PCA written by Liggett that was in one of my law enforcement esteemed sources' opinion was the worst PCA he's probably ever seen. Doesn't pass muster, D- to F. One of the worst PCAs he's ever seen. An esteemed law enforcement officer who handled thousands of PCAs. How are these questionable social media personalities who pressed on and on about how it's Richard Allen and he's muddy and bloody, how are they going to rectify these dilemmas here? I don't know it. I don't know the answer, but it ain't going to happen. There's no excuses going to pull out of this. You can't say it's just a defense bullshit, which is what they say. They say, oh, yeah, he's muddy bloody and he killed the girls and he went across the creek and it's defense. This just defense bullshit. Frank's memo. It doesn't sound like defense bullshit. I mean, if the defense invented the odorous patches on the guards at Westville, just tell me, how could they invent that fact? How could the defense invent the fact that Liggett lied about witness testimony and statements? Okay. How could they invent the fact that Westfall, Messer, Holder, Fields, Abrams, Smith, all link to each other and possibly link to the crime scene? How do we explain that? It is game over. It is game over. Fantasy world in Pleasantville is crumbling. This is why I said it's the dam is broken. There's no putting the cat back in the bag. It's no going back. So, how in the world do you not even consider the magnitude of some of the claims in this document? And how do you rationalize someone in a position of authority, such as Tony Liggett, outright misrepresenting, lying, and putting words in the mouths of witnesses? How do you do that? What if it was your third graders, elementary school principal? Or what if it was your teenagers, your 17-year-olds, high school principal? How would you justify the actions of those principals who are only responsible for caretaking children in the school building? Well, in this instance, you're dealing with someone responsible for the life or death of accused. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how they can sleep with themselves at night. How can you sleep at night knowing that you are turning a blind eye to obvious impropriety on the part of people who are trusted to protect and serve? Perhaps our law enforcement has forgot the fact that they are here to protect and serve us, not to escalate, incriminate, gaslight, beat, and kill us. I backed the blue until I realized the blue doesn't back the true. It is a shame the horrors that police and first responders have to deal with on a daily basis. I'll give them that. But when they are trained to lie, incriminate, target, escalate, they're no longer serving the people. They're not. They are serving their corporate masters, and that's what they do. This is why you have a high percentage of police officers that are Freemasons. And what biker gangs recruit specifically from law enforcement? Oh, yeah, they don't want us discussing that. In Indiana, what gangs recruit specifically from law enforcement? Yeah, maybe we should find out if we don't know. You might be, you might just be surprised. And that is the end of our Frank's Memorandum review. I thank you all for taking the time to sit here. Blessings galore coming into the house. Thank you, Blessings, for being here. Thank you, Luis Cuevas, for being here. This is there is a true story behind the old man BG sketch that would never be told to the public. Well, what is it? What is it? Blessings galore. All right. He's an alien. Nancy Drew 101, good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Georgia Jakes, thank you for coming in. Let's see. I don't know about that. Let's see. All right. Digital, welcome in, and thank you for coming in, Digital. I hope Richard Allen went to work that day. Louise says, who knows what was recorded over and what wasn't? The FBI had a file on Brad Holder that is how the defense are aware a recording did exist. Excuse me. All right, let's see. They're going to build their whole case on Betsy Blair seeing Bridge Guy on the bridge, but saying she's wrong about what he looked like, what he was wearing, and the car. All right. Oh, welcome in Tree Hugger. I see Tree Hugger. Come on in and welcome Tree Hugger and Jack Duty. Thank you, Jack Duty. I appreciate you coming in, and good to see you here. All right. Jaded Empath says, you said it right, Prof. It fell through the quacks. You know, I'm reading so many words, I trip over every other word. Let's see. All right. Liggett definitely reports how he sees things, not usually true facts. That's why I have a very hard time believing a report. Richard Allen was wearing 6 jackets and eight hats. All right. Diamond Eyes, welcome in. Diamond Eyes, welcome in. Diamond Eyes. I see you. Lisa Marie Presley, welcome in. Okay. Everyone's here now. Precascent. Blondie, welcome in, Blondie. Blondie 22. He was wearing a tripod and a huge video camera. I mean, dude. And had a machete and a bow and arrow up his pant leg. Okay. Digital says, and this was revealed months and months ago, and Richard Allen is still in prison, and Liggett is still sheriff. That's the scary part. Hopefully, they will really move it to federal court. That was the latest development this afternoon, and they are bringing in a new lawyer for the defense, so they will have 3. Yeah, we'll be talking about that in the next few days, but let's see. Diamond Eyes, I've heard of it. It connects Tino Rodell's story. Okay. We live in a communist country, and we all need to just face it. Oh, yeah. Oh, of course we do. He refused to give them... She granted the postponement. Yes, she did. I mean, good thing. I think Carter stopped talking because he didn't want Unified Command to know what he knew. You want to know what we know? I don't know, Doug. What do we know at this point? What's happening? The Supreme Court useless also today, just embellished on the decision they made to reinstall the original lawyers and void the change of judge. Yeah, it's clear they are conservative and trying to play middle ground, but I think this Frank's memorandum should have never. I mean, it's extremely concerning. It should be a hearing should have been granted, even if the feds did not hear back from law enforcement after letting them know there's odorous activity. They should have followed up. Yeah, what's their authority? I pray some truth comes out. It's coming out. It's coming out. All of this, we've waited all these years for this. Remember? If that is white noise, no voice on the taped interviews, that's tampering, game over. Rachel, the attorney who filed his brief is also licensed to practice in Indiana. He's a professor and argues habeas causes all the time at the Fed level. His case is not going to federal at this time. Yeah, but it might. It might. I think that was his suggestion. Okay, if you read that stuff. All right. How many interviewers were lost? Witnesses, searchers, families. Rest in peace. Okay. Precascent. That was the local news there reported. Some speculation, or some speculate that was the purpose of moving him. They want him dead, in my opinion. Liggett does what he wants. Does he have a YouTube channel? Yeah, probably. They're both bald-headed bastards. Okay. Okay. If Betsy Blair saw a boyish male, she would have thought he was a kid like teen. The guy she must have seen was taller at least. It doesn't make sense. That's why I had to deviate. Oh, you're saying he's dead. You're saying he's dead. I get it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't see why or how they think they can when the jury just with this right here. How do you overcome one lie by cops, much less more than one? It looks bad. The 2 girls that witnesses said they believed to be Abby and Libby won't stand in court. I don't think any of the witnesses will anymore, and neither will Liggett. I think Gull is going to say they accidentally erased it, but have a record in their head. Oof. See, what they're going for here is destroying all the evidence so that you have to type it out and rely on a transcript. And the transcript doesn't relate anything like tone, emotion, body language, subtle subconscious movements. All right. I have been on quite a roll the past few days. I'm so fed up with this narrative pushing. I just can't hold it in. Great job. It's called realizing what we're dealing with, right? Three angles: Odinist Freemasons, white supremacy, the animal furs. The whole Odinist thing. Hmm. Right. Let's see. If you want to see Elvis Fields carrying a crossbow and Logan Holder carrying a tripod, check out the two guys on the bridge in helicopter footage. Everyone dismissed as reporters. Well, what makes you think that's Elvis Fields and Logan Holder? What else makes you think that that is Elvis Fields and Logan Holder? I'm very familiar with that footage. What makes you think it's them? God knows what these guards were doing to him, his food, probably giving him drugs, shock vests, sickening. Yeah, that's why, everyone wondered why he was deteriorating. Imagine he doesn't know what's in his food, so he doesn't want to eat it. They're probably stressing him and intimidating him 24/7, screaming at him, yelling at him, whispering at him. Every time they put the vest on, they're probably shocking him. You can bet your ass they were mentally torturing him. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. ISP Holman, corrupt lying Freemason. I think I just dropped that link. I just dropped is for CPS building. Everyone knows duress leads to false confessions. Yes, it does. There is even there is even definite proof. No one believed they wore patches. They swore they wouldn't do that. Then they testified to it. Any one of us would be completely terrified. Yeah. Elvis is in Bridge Guy's alleged clothing with waterline across the top of his legs, and Logan in red jacket. Surely they won't claim to have video of part of the day and not the rest of the day. All right. All right. Was it Holder or Weiss who had or made his own knives? Okay. Did I catch up with the chat? No, not yet. Oh, here we go. Anybody who's ever watched one episode of Law and Order should know this is bullshit. Yet we're expected to act like morons, shake our heads, and agree he was there and he confessed. Yeah, that's the whole talking point with the narrative pushers. Don't think, don't read, don't empathize. Only listen to what we're telling you. Is he confessed, he was there, and he's the bridge guy. And he was muddy and bloody. And the comet, a 1965 comet, looks exactly like and is easily mistakable for a modern black Ford Focus. Okay, Weiss. Yeah, Weiss. Oh, at least we forget about the bloody vehicle that had to be washed several times at the car wash. Remember that? Weiss is a real piece of work. How did he not get met? Yeah, he murked his girlfriend. All right. Sunflower Soul, welcome in, Sunflower Soul. I see you. Thanks for coming in. Boom, there you are. There you are. Okay. Welcome in, Sunflower. Everyone in the Lurker crew, please join the chat. We're about to get out of here. All right. Was there a weapon at the crime scene? Knife, but supposedly not one used. I don't think so. Holman and Liggett are devils. All right, welcome in. Welcome in, Noe. Welcome in, Noe, and welcome in French 6290. Welcome in, guys. Awesome. I believe there's definitely stuff in the helicopter or drone videos. Carter said we have an aerial view of the crime and a completed puzzle. Don't forget that. Aerial view, a completed puzzle. It's his poetic manifestation of his situation. The day Liggett steps on the stand is the day we will get justice. Boy, I tell you what, imagine that cross-examination. I came in late, but I see my favorite person, Jerome Weiss, as a topic of discussion. Touche, Frenchie. What up, Frenchie? All right. Everyone loves you. Look at him. Okay. All right. Liggett will be ripped to shreds by either one of these attorneys. So will Tobe, Holman, and yeah, I mean, they've already been ripped to shred in this document, haven't they? It's over. Like I said, it's a game over. Game over. Now the due process has to actually kick in because game's over now. All right. It was Holder that liked blades. Weiss is a gun nut and blew her head off or whatever. Okay, so three girls don't even say the same thing. They're trying to stretch that shadow from the trees. Some closer than other. They say black. One's dressed in all black. What happened to guy in all black? You mean to tell me you're going to confuse a guy in tan and blue jeans with a guy in all black? Or are you going to confuse a guy in blue and blue with a guy in all black? Supreme. All right. Louise and Rochelle's. Noe says hi. Weiss still lives in the same trailer. He still shoots up his backyard. See Jerome on the Indiana Registered Sex Offender Registry. Jerome Weiss, ladies and gentlemen. All right. No evidence means no evidence, even in a Holman and Liggett deposition. Yeah, so what do they got now? A bullet that hasn't been fired, merely extracted. That's all they got? So Brad Weber's friends with these guys are any Mears men around that age. Jerome Weiss, Nate Miller, Clayton Miller, and Pat Brown are one group. Jerome Weiss, Nate Miller, Clayton Miller, and Pat Brown. Yeah, what happened with those guys on the 14th? Okay, what happened with those particular guys on February 14th, 2017? So the bullet and the fact that Richard Allen was there that day, although he says much earlier at noon, is there anything else I'm missing that ties him to the case? I don't think so, but now they're saying a motorcycle cover. That's the narrative pushers are saying now there's a motorcycle cover and 2 drops of mysterious blood. It's not common for not one, but 2 of the sisters told on the brother, who is special. Imagine that. I mean, for you to go rat your brother out, but not only that, 2 of them, they both went. And remember, the one of them, she had to go twice. She had to sort of like she had to oh, what's the word? Like she had to get the assistance of her friend who worked for Homeland Security to help get law enforcement to talk to Elvis when he had knowledge of the crime scene and confessed. So who actually confessed? Elvis Fields confessed. Elvis Fields had knowledge of the crime scene. Those sisters knew their brother was capable. I mean, they must have figured. There are over 150 people with a grudge against Father of the Year, Derek German, Mr. Banana Pancakes. Was he part of a CI situation and a large amount of methamphetamine that went down in the woods near Wilson Bridge on those days in February of 2017? Just curious. I think they were scared of him, especially when they realized what he's capable and part of. Gabe Ellis and the cartel, and one more. Derek's information led to 150 arrests, allegedly. He snitched on the Paladinos and the Kokomo crew. All right. There's enough reasonable doubt built into all of the nonsense spoken at law enforcement press conferences. Yeah, a lot. I mean, the reasonable doubt is just how are you ever going to get over that mountain? I heard once that Derek was roommate with Gabe Ellis for a short time years ago, but I've never mentioned it because it is pure rumor, and I didn't want to step out of line. Nicole Bowman was killed in a trailer park owned by the Paladinos. Pit bulls. Okay. Part of the deal for giving law enforcement so many arrests, Diamond Eyes. I can't believe they edit those tips memos. The day and time of edit would only show if they actually looked into the data of a tip with Facebook. I don't know. I don't know what you're saying, Georgia. His overdose showed toxicology. Oh, his mother said no to toxicology to an overdose. You're talking about Blaine Nelson. Let me put it up on the screen for the people. Okay. What happened to Robert Fortson? Yeah, what happened to Robert Fortson? What happened to Robert Kyle Fortson? We know what is said. Okay, it is said that he killed himself. What happened to him, though? Blaine Nelson was Kokomo crew. He cleaned up, mentored others, married AG, then poof, gone. His mother showed toxicology report. The comment. Yeah, well, he has been pointing at the comment. Yes, Louise. Yep. If you want to connect Odinism to Bridge Guy, check out Kyle Stacy of Kokomo, and you will find the mysterious F and the communication Bridge Guy with Gabe Ellis 7 years ago. Like Garrett Kurtz stated, the Delphi murders are all on social media. Read that again. Read that again, Snarky. If you want to connect Odinist to Bridge Guy, check out Kyle Stacy of Kokomo, and you will find the mysterious F and communication of Bridge Guy with Gabe Ellis 7 years ago. Like Garrett Kurtz stated, the Delphi murders are all on social media. I agree. And like Chris Mathis stated, it's Garrett's story to tell, but I'll tell you what I seen. Okay. Don't forget Blaine Nelson also talked about Kokomo crew on YouTube and was a nephew of the guy charged with killing Karina McClurkin. It's heartbreaking. Yeah. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty, but nope, no hearings, no hearings. With this mountain of evidence, 136 pages of meet. Nope, no hearing. Not worth my time to have a hearing. Only the state gets hearings. Yeah, like let's talk about the gag order. Let's talk about the gag order here, because what are we asking for a contempt of court for the violation of the gag order because it's the defense? Well, what about the violation of the gag order with family? Because whether he will admit it or not at this point, yes, little Frankie did say, and it is on record in both verbal, videoed format and in writing, that he was hired. He also said he was hired by family. He also said he talks with Becky Patty behind the scenes, but he's not supposed to say so because of, the gag order. This is all on video, it's all documented, and it's all in writing. We have Frank Meister saying, I talked to Becky. Marv, I talked to Becky. Sleuth Intuition, I talked to Becky yesterday. Thomas Frost and Frank Meister in photograph speaking with the Patties in front of the courthouse. Since this gag order has been in place, how many times has the gag order been subverted clearly and evidence exists to prove that fact? Because as I have shown to you, within the body of the gag order, it states not only directly with YouTubers, etc., but even through a third party, through an intermediary. So you cannot violate this gag order even through an intermediary, much less directly. For violations of this gag order, you may be cited with contempt of court, which could involve jail time or a fine. So if we want to talk about gag orders, let's talk about gag orders. Let's be fair here. Let's be fair and balanced. Let's be the scales of justice here. Let's talk about the gag order. I think the defense will have an easy time proving that the gag order has definitely been subverted and violated multiple times with multiple YouTubers and Facebookers. The evidence exists. It's already been documented and submitted to law enforcement. It doesn't need to be. It already exists. And it's been shared with several individuals so that it's not only on one person's computer or in one law enforcement officer's inbox. The evidence of the family violating the gag order, and not by family, I don't just mean one, I mean multiple family members violating the gag order. The evidence exists in the hands of multiple individuals because we've shared it all. So yes, the gag order has clearly been violated and documented. So do we want to talk about the gag order? Is the state the only one that's going to bring up the gag order here? I hope whatever occurred, Fortson had good intentions, and from his Facebook, he comes off as a compassionate human being. He does come off as a good human being, but at the same time, I feel that he bought the crime scene photos off of the Yubo app off of the dark web through the Yubo app, making a connection with someone who had these crime scene photos and that he purchased them. And I believe, although I cannot prove, it is my speculation that the $500 donation you see in Mark Cohen's GoFundMe is probably for crime scene photos. Because as the Mitchell Westerman PCA, written by ISP Detective Ben Rector, states very clearly, Mark Robert Cohen is the one who shared it with various YouTubers and podcasters. And now Mr. Fortson is dead. Okay. In his Reddit shows comments towards the end. In his Reddit comments towards the end were that you lost me, Louise, but I find Fortson's Reddit to be extremely interesting because he seems to be uh, less inclined to be like the total narrative pushers who he was associating with. He seems to be kind of middle ground to leaning this way, um, believing in due process. So I'm extremely concerned by that conflict of interest that even though he's involved with these guys in the leaks and getting this info, uh, his ideology falls closer to the side that we are on of truth, honesty, transparency, justice, and due process. So I'm very concerned by that conflict because that would be a reason to potentially do him harm. He had knowledge of what was going on with those who were spreading the crime scene photos and possibly who were selling the crime scene photos on the dark web, where he said he got them from by a connection made through the Yubo app or Yellow app. Since we're going to talk about what really happened. All right. Prof's getting tired now. Let's see if we can finish this up. If I catch up with the chat, let's see. I just don't think any of us in Indiana or anywhere else are safe. Yeah, well, none of us are safe anywhere because these people are everywhere. Okay, but Indiana, I won't be going to Indiana anytime soon. Okay. All right. They call it lies when proof is not at all. Act like defense made this all up, or like Sleuth was saying, Richard Allen set all this up ahead of time 7 years ago. That guy is unhinged. Sleuth intuition is fucking fanatically unhinged. Apologize. ACB, welcome to the party. ACB says, mind blown, cannot stay. Well, cheers and goodbye. ACB in and out, dipping in and out to say hello to everyone. All right. Everyone says hi, ACB. We love you, miss you. There you go. There you go. Okay. Luis Cuevas has been bat signaling you, ACB. If you have to tell people you're the boss, you're probably not. Math, people trafficking, yep. Money laundering, yep. Fraud, yep. Corruption, yep. Violation of the NFA Act, yes. And shakalaka shaka shaka shack in the Birch Tree Shack. Oh, let's talk about the shack. Let's talk about Wilson's Bridge and the woods and Deer Creek all the way that direction. Let's talk about how they were probably geocaching and wandering on into places in the woods where they shouldn't have been on that particular day at that particular time. And a bunch of people possibly were particularly all fucked up, meth out of their mind on a 18-hour bender. But what do we know? I mean, I'm only repeating what Carrie Timmons herself has speculated. Okay, but Boss would have wanted to work that hard now. Now, mayor like Sean Evans. They have a lot of free time and first to know secrets. All right. Everyone is liars except Liggett and McClellan and all the despicable YouTubers. Yeah, everyone's liars except the despicable YouTubers and Liggett and McClellan. Okay, now I'm off on a mystery. I think it's like a movie or book. Look at Ozark. What's going on there? Okay. I want justice for me. They can do lawfare against President Trump and deny Richard Allen due process. What will they do to me when they come for me? Well, that's what I was saying about Richard Allen. It could be any of our kids. Okay, so most of you probably have adult age, possibly teenage kids. Should you have adult age kids? This could happen to your child, could happen to you. This is not the way it's supposed to go. I mean, the lying on a outright lying to entrap another individual or to go after another individual, that's just not allowed. That's not the way this is supposed to be. My sister had a 64 Mercury Comet. Yeah, that's quite a ship. It's a big old boat of a car. So is Mike Patty the head of the Bacon Fest? I know he presented the Baking Eating Contest Award at least once because Greeno won it that year. Yeah, Greeno is. How is Greeno connected to the family? How did we invent all of this? That's what I'm saying in this 136 pages. How, if that's taken directly from discovery and verified, vetted, and investigated and presented, then how is it all made up believe, make believe? How is it all make believe? Black and white. It's black and white. Don't see how they think they will win with the jury. Yeah. How do you prove beyond a reasonable doubt unless you got something that no one knows about that's explosive and undeniable? Because this altogether is a big ball of reasonable doubt. Okay. Fearful the jury will be bought and paid for. Well, the YouTubers are. I wonder what's the total of people in killers and cover-uppers. Oh, at least 50 to 100. I think you got at least maybe 5 to 11 directly, and then you have 50 surrounding them, at least. You're welcome, Blondie. Yeah, my throat's almost gone. I'm done. My throat is dry. All right. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Diamond Eyes. Okay. I want to hear Prof's comments on the chat. Well, that's my favorite part, digital. That's why I'm here. It takes so long to get to this point, though. Let's see. Noe says, "What up?" Okay, Argentina. Okay, my backup channel is Prof True Crime. You can find links to my donation pathways on the About Me section of the YouTube page, like Buy Me a Coffee and Cash App. So I have an amazing new members only video up. If you'd like to join members only, I was trying to figure out how to enable membership gifting. I can't figure out how to do it or if it's even possible, but I'm trying to figure out the membership gifting and also the how I can gift you memberships. So I got lost in all of that as I was reading through it in the YouTube and the Google, you know, membership information. I just couldn't figure out what they were telling me to do, but I would love to set up the membership gifting. But you have memberships, we have our donation pathways, and also commenting in the chat and adding this amazing information. Almost most importantly, subscribing to backup channel and hit like. All of those things will make me extremely happy, because this chat is where it's at. And so I'd love to have that backup channel going just in case I ever need it. So I got to get it to at least 500. So please help me get to 500 backup channel subscribers. The first Bridge Guy sketch, old guy, was Elvis Fields? Or you mean the young guy? The second Bridge Guy sketch, the old guy, was the one they made flyers on and had Gabe Ellis piercings. Once they arrested Gabe Ellis on February 15, Kokomo's Most Wanted, they realized they didn't have the Bridge Guy. They removed the piercings. Interesting. Okay. An article where Gabe Ellis said he was there. Well, hey, go investigate every Tina Rodell statement. That's my that's my opinion. Tina Rodell, in my opinion, Tina Rodell is a godsend, and that information is as incredible as Open Secrets interviews with Gary Kurtz and Chris Mathis. Okay, Wes, what up? What up? We now you've made it. You made it in. We missed you. Okay, a game they thought they won. Yeah, they thought they won, but the game's over. They mistakenly see it lasted 6 years. It did last a long time. It gave them 6 more years, maybe 7. It worked for a while, but it's too much. Too much. Okay, you say I zoomed in compared to other images and followed most channels searching and chats. Once images surfaced for comparison after several years, its surface became evident. Well, I suggest you look at the versions I've posted. The helicopter footage I have posted is the actual original file. So should you go to either one of my channels and find the helicopter footage that I posted, I took the original file and posted it, and no one has done that. So when you look at the one I have posted, it is the only one that is an original highest quality. So if you're really interested in the helicopter footage, you have to look at mine, unless you go to Facebook and find the original live that was broadcast that day. But if you don't have that, it's not on YouTube other than in both my channels. So if you want to actually see the highest, clearest quality of the helicopter footage, you got to watch it on my channels, or you got to go dig it up on the web. And it's not enhanced. You don't want to watch anything enhanced or anything slow mode or anything edited. Or anything downgraded. You have to watch the actual original quality, highest quality footage from that live stream, and then you will actually be able to see much more clear the details that may have been a little obscured in the other versions that have been posted everywhere. Okay. There were probably a few Muddy and Bloody. Remember that German and Evans both went to Frankfurt hours apart. Gross to even think about. Yeah, why did they go to Vegas? And what happened in Vegas? Did you know Blaine Nelson was married to Ashley Garth? What? Rafi may be a good person to ask about Brown. Pat Brown. Meat with substance. Yeah, that's 136 pages. What I was saying. God damn. It's meaty. It's thick. It's fact dense, like it alleged it was at the introduction. It followed through with its own claims. Who said what again today? What did I miss? Who said what again today, Precison? I'm almost caught up. Who said what? I'm a little confused. Does anyone have the image that Tina Rodell posted of the car with the open trunk? Yeah. Okay. They say that, but are they acting all their whole accord? People are doing these things thinking they're helping. No, they're not. A lot of them know they're doing wrong. That's the thing, Louise. That's why we see what we got to be discussing. You cannot expect the best. Okay. I don't think they think they're helping. There may be some of them who do believe they are helping by all of these wrong things they're doing and the hacking and all that, but they're not helping. And those they are foolish, but they certainly know they're committing crimes and that they're harassing, stalking, and bullying all the people who are demanding some type of accountability here. So that's not called helping. There may be one or two of them who are dumb and think that they're helping when they're just being destructive. But no, I don't buy that line. That is the line they want you to believe. We're just helping. We're just helping. Nope. That's the line they want you to believe. And by that, I mean all the fucking hackers centered around Fig. Okay? In case it's not clear enough, all the hackers surrounding Fig, that's what I'm fucking talking about. Yeah, they think they came to Julie Melvin and Little Joe Lewis for strategy. Come on. This is why I'm saying they're problems. The people that did that were definitely on the side of the prosecution, but framed people on the side of the defense. You mean the leakers? Yeah, the leakers were all prosecution friendly. I believe working for the state. I believe this was a plan that was set out and originated from the state with the intention of removing these 136 pages. Okay, the plan was we have to derail this defense to make these 136 pages go away and this strategy go away. So uh, we're going to cause a disaster and plan a massive leak that will destroy this entire defense and make these 136 pages go away. It's my opinion, and I think I saw it happen. The Franks is full of information. Every word has meaning, even though it's full of typos, which I don't like because I'm kind of a little stickler for typos, but come on, it's full of them. I deleted my Discord. Too many weirdos connected to people, fucks posts with crazy shit and play fucking games and shit. Yeah, that's all that happens in Discord. Slander, doxing, lies, bullying. Uh, Discord lives up to its name. It's about Discord. Okay. It was on the news around the first of the year about Freemasons being exposed right after Detroit Black Prophecy. Hey, guess what? Do you know that three police commissioners were arrested and charged with various crimes of malfeasance in different ways today? Good old Indiana police commissioners, corrupt as fuck. Three of them. They got a sting. They got stung. Okay, they got stung. So, any other police commissioners we got to worry about in Indiana? I'd love to know how Greeno is connected to the family. I'm sure he claimed how shortly after he came out of prison and jumped back on YouTube, if not mistaken. He's connected to the family. He's also the only one who literally threatens the lives of half the YouTubers. Most other people have common sense not to do that. The truth will rise to the surface. It is already. That's what I'm saying. The dam is broken. It's over. Game's over. It's all over. It's all right out here. The thing that has happened now is that the truth has arisen to the level of public conversation, public discussion, and that's usually what has to happen. The truth can be okay if a few know it, and it's good for that person or whatever. But once the truth rises to the level of public conversation, then the truth is seen the light of day, and then God takes his course, and nature takes its course, and boom, things happen. That's why I said game's over. Hey, Caitlin. Caitlin Woodward made alive. Welcome in. Thank you. So good to see you. Thank you for making alive. Appreciate it. Uh, Please hit subscribe or hit the little notification. You'll catch them when they come on. But I've seen your comments throughout the channel. I know you've been trying to have a conversation, and I appreciate it. But I'm not following too well. But I'm trying to keep up with your comments. You bounce around the different video uploads and whatnot. So email me or something, Caitlin, and I'd be happy to talk with you. All right, welcome in, Shiraz. Shiraz says, this is my first time here. Was looking for lives and recognized the prof was someone I was chatting with earlier tonight in Madas. Oh yeah, I did. I was in Madas for a second. This is all sort of new to me. Oh, well, Shiraz, we just finished a multi-episode deep dive into the Frank's Memorandum, 136 pages. And if you're not very familiar with the 136 pages Frank's Memorandum, which is extremely concerning, I would suggest this resource is here for you. We've done several of these lives in a row, going through step by step, point by point through this 136 pages. And tonight we just finished it. So you'll be able to go back if you'd like and check out all of that. And there may be some things that you're not aware of yet. So yeah, this Frank's Memorandum is incredible. Thank you so much for coming in the channel. And it was good to watch Bob Madas earlier. Okay. Yeah, email me, guys. Just email me. It's on the About Me page too. Little Frankie mentioned chatting with Becky Patty today. He said he wasn't paid. I watched a little today because someone sent me a clip where he said he wasn't paid. But here's the thing: he's already said he's paid. He said he's paid in writing and verbally, and it's all documented. So the thing is, it's not going to work, Frankie. You got to say who paid you. People want to know who paid you. Right before you went and attacked every single YouTuber on this side of the aisle, everyone on this side of the aisle, you got to say who paid you to do that. Mention that defense has a lot of good evidence in their documents, and if you get group jumped, Yeah. All right. They literally sit on their shows and mock the defense and anybody that's in line with the side of transparency. Seen and heard it with my own ears and two eyes. Yes, you will witness that. And the problem with that is they go after the personal attacks. They go after the total narcissistic gaslighting, personal attacks, because they can't argue the points. Okay, so to not argue the points, they attack the person. They attack the people instead of the ideas. And that's the thing that doesn't work. It's like that people see through that over time. So the fact that you're attacking us personally, you're calling our jobs, calling our families, calling our organizations, doing the stalking, doing the hacking, all these things you're doing to us, it's because you can't argue the points. So you go and tell me how Liggett was not misrepresenting witness testimony and how he was not lying. Prove that point. Frankie, if you want to prove something, prove that you didn't say you were paid, because we have proof that you did say multiple times you've been paid, and that you talked with Becky Patty behind the scenes, but you can't say anything, because of the gag order. I mean, it's on videotape from your live. It's on screenshot from your messages. So come on, you're going to have to step up to the plate of addressing facts with facts and let the best idea win. Let the truth win. If it don't make shit, you must acquit. Yeah, it don't make sense. You don't make sense. It doesn't. None of them. You read the Frank's memo. Yeah, also you know it's all in there. You know it's in there. It's insane. There's a lot in there that's good. For me, the most concerning thing is the abuse of power. Abuse of power turns into absolute power. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. And this is what we're looking at, I think. I think. All right. Okay. I see Jen P popping in. Welcome in, Jen P, popping in to say hi. I've been listening. Thank you so much. Because now I think here we're now at the end. We've caught up with the chat. I love you so much. It always takes so long to pop into this chat, but we have caught up with the chat. Thanks so much for everyone who's contributed to this chat tonight. It's awesome. Oh yeah, regarding this person, they're not blocked. I don't know what this person is talking about. Amy and K West. I checked into it. The person is not blocked. I think it's some kind of bullshit going on. I don't know, but the person you're asking about, I double, triple checked, is not blocked whatsoever. So I don't understand what's going on with the idea of blocking. Maybe that person has blocked me unintentionally. I don't know what the blocking is about, but it's not on my end. Okay. Shiraz, they hate the Frank's memorandum. They do. And immediately what they came in to say, their argument immediately was just like the character assassination. They said, "Oh, it's just scumbag lawyers, Baldwin and Razi, just fall bullshit." Never did they stop to admit that it came from discovery, that it contained all these highly concerning points, especially concerning Ligon and Holman. They never did address those issues, but the whole thing was character assassination. Oh, it came from these scumbag, douchebag uh, defense attorneys. It's all BS. Except when you look into it, it's not all BS. It's a perspective, but the perspective is built from evidence that has been checked. So the next level of it is, let's have a hearing in which it is argued legally and more evidence is presented so we can even understand what we're dealing with beyond like the highly concerning red flags that it presents. And they can never get on board with logically arguing valid points. All right. I'm blocked by Ruckus and Sleuth, and I've never spoken a word of them in my life. Because if you watch my channel or get in my chat, if you get in my chat and they see you in my chat, they're going to block you. That's what they do. If you jump in my chat and comment, then you get blocked on their channels. It's crazy. All right. Did they mention getting? Did they mention these YouTubers getting paid? Yeah, who's getting paid? Who's paying? Who's violating the gag order here? But it's all about abuse of power. I mean, from you got the local authorities abusing power, you have the state authorities abusing power, and you have the court. The court is abusing power. In my opinion, they're all It's complete abuse of power from the top, not the way it's supposed to be. They'd rather just call everyone who wants transparency crazy. Yeah, yeah, and then they go on the gaslight rants and all the bullshit. Um, anyway, I don't know. It's not much. It's not much worth discussing. I mean, it's pretty apparent to everyone at this point. That's what I've been saying is that people are starting to see for themselves what really goes on. That we don't have to demonstrate it to you anymore. Robin is a good one, so it's quite possible it's a mistake on her end or worse. Somebody cloned her avatar knowing that I'd ask on her behalf and possibly piss you off. I don't know what's going on, but there is no. She's not blocked on my side, and I checked both channels, so I apologize for whatever difficulties that she's having. The funny thing is, I did see her comment in my channel, so if she's blocked, how is she commenting? So I don't know. But yeah, guys, so we made it through. We made it through these 136 pages. Thank goodness it's done. I'm happy to have made it. And tomorrow we will do our supplemental. And in the supplemental, we will cover, in the supplemental episode, we will cover the new defense filings and how they relate to these 136 pages. And that will be very interesting because the new filings are very interesting. There's 3 we're going to be going through. Pardon me. All very well written, very interesting, and worth bringing out to the public here. So, yeah, guys, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate the interaction in the chat. It lights my day up to have you here in the chat. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe, and also to the backup channel where we're trying to build a solid foundation over there in case we get taken down. Remember Ruckus when he began really has changed. Everyone whines about anyone on YouTube making money as if that automatically invalidates their motives. Everyone, unless YouTube agrees with them. Well, here's the deal. They all make money. Everyone makes money on YouTube, basically. Even if they say they're not monetized or something, there's something they're getting out of it. They're getting dopamine hits from the attention. So the whole thing with monetization doesn't bother me one bit because I've spent more on equipment and time in this project than I could ever make back in a year. I mean, at this point, the $5 a day or whatever it might be that YouTube is benefiting me, it's not worth the heartache whatsoever. I mean, what would it turn out to, $1.25 an hour every day I'm on a stream or something? So yeah, that's big money making on YouTube. Big money making. We don't have 6 million viewers here. So those monetization shaming tactics don't work. It's just another way they try to slander and defame and discredit, and it just doesn't work. All right, so let's see. We got wanting the truth out there equals being in the Richard Allen fan club. Yeah, that's how they want to cast it. I'm not big on conspiracies, but they call us conspiracy nuts. I go with logic and critical thinking. Me too, but they call us conspiracy nuts. Not only that, I believe personally, my personal belief, if you really want to know and must know, is that Richard Allen is probably somehow involved in this group, is my opinion. Okay, it's my feeling or opinion. So I do believe that Richard Allen might have something to do with the crimes, but I want the truth and justice for Abby and Libby more than I want to crucify one guy and make him the devil in all of this. So I don't claim he's completely innocent. I don't complain I don't proclaim that he's completely guilty. I think I don't know his level of guilt, but I know one thing: this abuse of power is concerning, and it supersedes any concern that I have over his level of involvement in these crimes. At this point, I'm more concerned about this abuse of power that it's system wide. It's from top to bottom. It's from police department to sheriff's department to volunteer firemen to DNR to state police to Supreme Court to county court. So I'm highly concerned about the abuse of power, and that takes precedence over my feeling about whether Richard Allen is completely innocent, completely guilty, or somewhere in the middle. Going to replay. Glad I found this. It's been months since I read it. Oh, we go into it deeply. Thank you so much, though. I hope you appreciate it and enjoy it. Most welcome, Prof. Always a pleasure. Just narked, I got in late. All right. Amy says, K West, there are several timed out blocked by mods the other night, but it was going fast, so I didn't catch. Yeah, but I checked. I went in today, this morning, and I checked. And that person's not in the block list. It's definitely worth the second listen. I picked up stuff I forgot about. Because it's so much. It's so much, I can't even keep it all in my brain. I can't keep my mind wrapped around it. I just know it's a lot of points. Okay. All right. Them indentured servitude wages. Tell you what. But I do appreciate all the support. Like I said, participating in the chat is perhaps the greatest support you can give. And then the second greatest is probably sending in your various, monetary support through the different pathways if you choose to. That's also encouraging and helpful. And but anyway, I just my channel I created to be about discussing with the chat. I think is clear to everyone, and so it's most valuable to me that you're here in the chat. I found the Prof and Criminalities channel. That's another good one in case you don't already follow. Oh yeah, Mada and Criminality, they talk a lot. I mean, they go through all of this. It's the thing when things come out. Also Gisela always makes a point to go through things. So, those are people who I admire, respect, and I consider YouTube friends because there's not that damn many. Curious Crimes. All right. Well, I think we've caught up to the chat, and I am so extremely happy for that. So we'll wind it down. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for participating. I'll give you a round of applause. I really will, as that was a stellar chat. It's been a long road going through that. So I'm so glad to be through it. So boom, here we are. And for any of your new viewers, my longtime viewers know this, but if you go down through the community pages on both my main and backup channel, I use those community pages to post receipts of things that are concerning and interesting and relevant to the case. So if you are interested in exploring that, you can grab on into the community post on both channels, and you'll find lots of things to explore. And always feel free to leave a comment in the comment section, because I make it a point to read every single comment and reply to every single question that's asked in the comments. So if you have any input after reviewing the community page and over former uploads, you can always use that comment section, and we keep that just as active as we keep this chat. So thank you so much. Let's see. Shiraz says, nice meeting you. Nice meeting you too. And I'm glad we bumped into each other over at Mada's. Someone needs to tell Ruckus a plea deal is coming soon. Round of applause to you, K West. All right, everyone. Awesome. So I'm going to pop out of here. I'm going to leave the chat open for 10 minutes, let you say goodnight to each other, and or 5 minutes, whatever it might be. And we'll see you on the next time we gather here. So good night. God bless everyone. All right. Hug your kids, hug your wife.